and TVs at 1:20 p.m. Central Time. That's, of course, our time here in Nashville. The message will read, "This is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. No action is needed." FEMA said it's a standard test that they do at least once every 3 years. That is the latest news. We've got weather and our first traffic report of the afternoon coming up. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy on this Monday, the first Monday in October, October 2nd, and we're glad that you are here with us as we try to explain all the stuff that's been going on since we were with you last on Friday. And to that point, let me just go ahead and admit I sort of got it wrong. I mean, the way it looked to me on Friday was that we were headed toward a government shutdown. It didn't look good at all. It looked like people were dug in and that there wasn't going to be anything. And then Speaker McCarthy did something that I think was sort of unexpected. I mean, he was under a lot of pressure not to do it, but he ultimately decided that he would put forth a short-term spending bill. Some kind of deal was cut behind the scenes. And the deal, he wanted some border funding there. They didn't get that. The Democrats wanted some Ukraine funding. They didn't get that. But apparently a deal was made to get some Ukraine money maybe later. Well, at least bring it up for a vote. Yeah, McCarthy put it this way before he started.
If somebody wants to make a motion against me, bring it. There has to be an adult in the room.
See, he was talking about Matt Gaetz, who said if you bring a short-term spending bill and count on the Democrats, and by the way, it was passed by a lot of Democrats. I think there were 90 Republican or 89 Republicans who voted against it in the House of Representatives. So it would not have passed had it not been for the support of the Democrats. And the word is that, the White House, the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and McCarthy cut some kind of deal saying, listen, we're not going to be able to get Ukraine funding through the House, but at least I'll give you the opportunity to bring it up on a vote. Doesn't mean it's going to pass. It might pass. I don't know. But one way or the other, they decided to take both border and Ukraine out of the mix. And then they passed a bill, largely, as I mentioned, with a lot of Democrat support. In Tennessee, Congressman Burchett, DeJarlais, Green, Harshbarger, Ogles, and Rose all voted no, as did Senator Haggerty and Blackburn over in the Senate. And so, I think the folks that you would sort of expect to vote against something like this voted against it. And now the problem comes for Speaker McCarthy, because Matt Gaetz of Florida, who was against this whole idea, said, if you do that, if you pass a short-term spending bill, then I'm going to try to get you kicked out of the speaker's job with something known as a motion to vacate the chair. And it's a real question about whether or not he can garner the votes. It's close. I'll give you that one for sure. Matt Gaetz spoke on one of the Sunday shows this weekend about his plans.
Kevin McCarthy's going to get his wish. I don't think the adult in the room would allow America to sit atop a $33 trillion debt facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. I don't think the adult in the room would allow $8 trillion of this debt to come into refinancing at a higher level without serious spending cuts. And I don't think the adult in the room would lie to House conservatives. And that is exactly what Kevin McCarthy did. In January, to get the speakership, Kevin had to agree to certain guardrails on spending, and he had to agree to a process that would allow us to put some downward pressure on spending. Since the mid-90s, this country has been governed by revolving continuing resolution and omnibus spending bill. And what that means is that America's lawmakers take one up or down vote on the funding of the entire government. That is crazy. That is the reason we're $33 trillion in debt. We want to move to single subject spending bills. So he made that commitment. He broke it. And if at this time next week Kevin McCarthy is still Speaker of the House, it will be because the Democrats bailed him out, and he can be their Speaker, not mine.
So when do you make this move?
You'll be seeing it this week.
This week, okay.
That's why I came on the show this week.
Now, look, it takes only one person, obviously, you, to call for a vote to remove him, so-called motion to vacate. But you would need a majority to remove him, which means you're going to need Democrats to remove him. Do you really think that Democrats are going to vote to remove Kevin McCarthy because he made a deal with Democrats?
No. I actually think Democrats are going to bail out Kevin McCarthy. So this is an exercise to show the American people who really governs you and how that governing occurs. So I'm on a mission to change it, where we're evaluating these bills independently. Kevin McCarthy is off making a secret deal on Ukraine as he's baiting Republicans to vote for a continuing resolution that doesn't include Ukraine. So the one thing Democrats, Republicans, the White House that we all have in common is that Kevin McCarthy at one point or another has lied to all of us. But if they want to keep him, then he belongs to them.
But so you're not accomplishing anything here. I mean,
that's not true.
Well, you don't have the votes to remove him. So.
Well, by the way, I don't know until we have him. And by the way, I might not have him the first time, but I might have him before the 15th ballot. That's the number of ballots Kevin McCarthy needs.
So are you going to do this every day like you had suggested? Or are you going to like go through this process of voting over and over and over again?
I am relentless, and I will continue to pursue this objective. And if all the American people see is that it is a uniparty that governs them, and that it is always the Biden, McCarthy, Jeffries government that makes dispositive decisions on spending, then I am seeding the fields of future primary contests to get better Republicans in Washington who will actually tackle these deficits and debt.
All right, so that was Matt Gaetz on ABC this weekend. I'll tell you, the guy puts together a good sentence or two. He really knows how to communicate. He's very effective in that way. McCarthy appeared on another Sunday talk show. I gave you about 2 minutes and, 45 seconds of Gaetz. Here's about 2 minutes and 45 seconds of what the speaker had to say.
He's going to try to oust you as Speaker of the House.
Well, that's nothing new. He's tried to do that from the moment I ran for office. Look.
Well, this time he says he's going to keep going. May not get there before the 15th ballot, but it took 15 for Kevin McCarthy. He says he's coming for you. Can you survive?
Yes, I'll survive. This is personal with Matt. Matt voted against the most conservative ability to protect our border, secure our border. He's more interested in securing TV interviews than doing something. He wanted to push us into a shutdown, even threatening his own district with all the military people there who would not be paid, only because he wants to take this motion. So be it, bring it on, let's get over with it, and let's start governing. If he's upset because he tried to push us in a shutdown, and I made sure government didn't shut down, then let's have that fight.
You need 218 votes to vacate. Has Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, said that he will?
No. He hasn't said
what?
He hasn't said anything about what he's going to do. Look,
Democrats could cross over and follow Gaetz's lead on this.
Yeah,
look,
Gaetz is trying to work with Democrats. He's reached out to Swalwell, to AOC, and others. But if that's the way we're going to govern, I don't think America is going to be successful. Look, at the end of the day, think of everything we've been able to accomplish so far. Parents' Bill of Rights. We passed the most conservative bill to protect our border, make America energy independent. We've been able to cut $2 trillion in the debt ceiling, get work requirements back in. The hard part we have right now is the Senate has not passed one appropriation bill. Each body's supposed to pass 12. We've passed more than 70% of the discretionary spending already.
But
I thought it was appropriate.
Chance of surviving in the Senate and making it into law.
Well, you said that same thing when we stopped D.C. from decriminalizing everything. You said the same thing when we said we're going to stop the pandemic.
I don't think I ever talked about those things.
Well, no, you and the main of the press would think, why pass it? Because the Senate won't take it up and won't sign it. Most of it in the press probably thought we would have shut down yesterday, too. But no, we did not.
Were you confident we wouldn't shut down?
I was confident I could get something on the floor to make sure the option that we would not.
But
that
you
our
weren't sure
military,
it was going to pass.
Well, I wasn't sure it was going to pass. You want to know why? Because the Democrats tried to do everything they can not to let it pass. They did
Democrats were the ones who voted for this in a larger number than Republicans to keep the continuing resolution alive.
Did you watch the floor yesterday?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
90 Republicans voted against it.
Okay, so let's walk through what actually happened. First of all, the Democrats stood up and did dilatory actions, asked to adjourn. So was that supporting to adjourn? Then they used the magic minute. They went as far as pulling the fire alarm, not to try to get the bill to come up.
Well, I mean, and bringing up that fire alarm thing, there was sort of a little side story to all of this drama that was going on over the weekend when Representative Jamal Bowman apparently pulled, well, and there's no doubt about it, there's a picture of him doing it, he pulled a fire alarm. And he says, I thought I was just pulling an alarm that would let me open the door. I guess this guy had never seen a fire alarm before that has literally the word fire on it. But he was caught outside his office today by Fox.
Do you still stand by your statement that pulling the fire alarm was an accident?
I don't know why this has gotten so much attention. I was literally just in a rush to go vote, man. That's all it was.
Mm-hmm. Are you afraid of any repercussions, either from leadership or from legally from Capitol Police?
I mean, listen, I take responsibility for what I did, but like I said, I was in a rush to go vote, and, the investigation will sort everything else out.
Have you talked to Jeffries about it?
Oh, yeah, of course. That's day one, yes.
How was that conversation?
Well, I got to keep that between me and the leader, so I'm not going to share that publicly. Yeah, but we've been in touch with each other.
Yeah, I'm not buying this at all. It was they were trying to slow things up. They actually did take actions to slow things up on the floor and not have to take this vote. But one way or the other, at the end of the day, enough votes passed that the House measure was passed, and it went to the Senate, and it passed there, and then it went to the president's desk. And the president, this is where we get into the Ukraine thing. He started talking about whether or not there was going to be a Ukraine deal. He mentioned it in passing that, I signed it into law because I am certain that we'll be doing something about a Ukraine deal.
I did not believe we could let millions of Americans go through the pain of a government shutdown. But let's be clear. I hope my friends on the other side keep their word about support for Ukraine. They said they were going to support Ukraine in a separate vote. We cannot, under any circumstance, allow American support for Ukraine to be interrupted. I fully expect the Speaker to keep his commitment to secure the passage and support needed to help Ukraine as they defend themselves against aggression and brutality. And folks, overwhelmingly, there's overwhelming number of Republicans and Democrats in both the House and the Senate who support Ukraine. Let's vote on it.
Well, I mean, there will be a vote. Apparently that was the deal that was struck. No promise that it would pass, just simply that we'll take an independent, we'll cut it out of the short-term spending bill, and we'll put it up as an individual, item and see whether or not it can, pass muster in the House. My expectation is it probably will do that because, well, I mean, you and I may have some qualms about the money going to Ukraine, but there's been a lot of Republicans who have voted for it and a lot of Democrats, and I would expect that they could probably cobble together enough votes to get more Ukraine spending if they want to, because Republicans have been supportive of it. At least a good number of them have. So it's weird, though. At the White House today, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the deal that was struck, the sort of, as Matt Gaetz called it, a secret deal that was struck to actually have a vote on Ukraine funding going forward, and she didn't want to touch it at all.
Just not going to go beyond.
What he said true?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president
said. So you won't
said.
say that what he said was true?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president
You're
said.
declining to say that what he said was true.
I just answered. Go ahead.
That's it. Yeah. Sorry, James. She's not going to answer. So, I mean, what a deal. Let me see if I can sort of recap here. McCarthy pulls a rabbit out of his hat and decides to go forward with a vote on the short-term spending bill. Some people call it a CR. I think that's not really the right term for it. It's a funding bill, short-term, and he does it, and he gets enough votes to pass. Gaetz says, if you do this, I'm gonna move to get you removed as Speaker, and he says I will call to vacate the chair at some point this week. He's checking to see if he has the votes. McCarthy says, I'll survive that. I don't think he has the votes to have me removed as Speaker. And the question is, will he need the votes of Democrats to stay alive? It's sort of weird in this way. McCarthy, may need a few Democrat votes to get him across, to 218 to remain in the chair. Okay. It's also true that if Gaetz is going to put up this motion to vacate, and it were to succeed, it would succeed also because all of the Democrats voted with Gaetz. So both of them, have a plan that requires maybe Democrats to help them get over the hump. So, that's sort of an interesting thing. I don't know. Bottom line is we got 45 days. Really, I think at this point, we'll see what Gaetz does. We'll see if McCarthy can survive. Those are going to be major storylines for the week. But I think the thing that is also going to be a storyline is, can they get the other, I think it's 8 appropriations bills passed out of the House? How will the Senate react? Can you fund this government in 45 days? Or are we going to be back here in 45 days going through the same kind of hoo-ha? I don't like hoo-ha. I don't want any hoo-ha. I just, let's get it over with. Let's decide what we're going to do. And I'd like to know what you would like to do and how you feel about this battle between Gaetz and McCarthy. And here's the number. It is 615-737-9986. We'll take some of your calls coming up in just a moment. Right now, 22 past the hour. Hey, have you heard about lab-grown diamonds? Here's a word of advice. Don't buy a lab-grown diamond until you talk to my friends at Genesis. Genesis will reveal the secrets behind this new product and make sure you're protected if you decide to buy one. Genesis has non-commissioned experts. They will teach you the difference between a natural diamond and a lab-grown diamond so you can make the smartest, most informed decision. One thing you'll learn is how some jewelers are grossly overcharging for lab-grown stones. There are some insane markups going on. You need to be aware. Example, at some stores, they're selling a 4-carat round lab-grown diamond stud earrings, and they say they run about $9,000. But at Genesis, you can get them for about half that price with better quality diamonds. I said half the price. You need to get informed. You need to get a second opinion. You need to be careful and be an informed customer, and that's what Genesis promises. They are transparent and will teach you all you need to know about making a smart buy, just as they have always done. Genesis Diamonds, your trusted advisor when it comes to the complex world of diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. They are the official jeweler of the Tennessee Titans.
While his attorneys are presenting his defense, former President Donald Trump is an active participant in his New York fraud trial. And how much funding for Ukraine is enough? We'll have those stories at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay Harper. Good to have you in for Mac Morey today. We got Mason Fleming is in for Chris Weber, who's taking a day or two off. But I'm here, and we're gonna keep on cranking. So my question is, you've heard what Matt Gaetz says. Maybe we need a new speaker. You've heard McCarthy say, no, I have to be the adult in the room, and I think I can survive. Where are you? I mean, which one do you support? Do you support McCarthy or Gaetz? 615-737-9986. We'll start with Lewis in Millersville. Lewis, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Lewis?
McCarthy's got to go. With his mouth moving, he's lying. That's the way you can tell.
Yeah.
He takes and he goes in the back room with Democrats. Well, with the establishment, we can call it what we want, but he's just part of the group there that wants to make sure everything for them is the way it's supposed to be, and they survive, and everybody else gets screwed. I don't know. I don't understand why they have to wait till the last minute every year to do this flipping thing. 4 more weeks. Why didn't they do this 4 months ago? I mean, they play this freaking game every year. Matt Gaetz has called them out. I think he's right. I remember the first day McCarthy went in office, he was supposed to get rid of Mayorkas. What happened to that? He lied again.
Well, listen, I got to. Yeah, hang on. I gotta jump in for a second here. You know what? I think if it was going to be a shutdown, I was going to be okay with it. And it sounds like you're right there with me on that one. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, they didn't shut it down, but no, go ahead, please. I'm stepping on you.
I mean, they really need to shut it down. They're not gonna lose anything. The people that are, they talk all that about not going to get their check. My son's military. He knows, Dad, I'm going to be furloughed. I'll get my money at the end of it. Okay, they're going to give me a short vacation. What do we need to do to make sure these politicians are responsible on the front end and don't wait till the last minute to play games with it every flipping year? That's what irritates the snot out of me.
Well, it irritates a lot of people, and I have an answer for that, and that is that, it comes down to the decisions you make when you go to the ballot box. Now, it is good to see that Burchett and Desjardins and Green and Harshbarger, Ockles and Rose, and then over in the Senate, there were 9 senators who voted against the deal to keep the government open, and of the 9 no votes, you could include Haggerty and Blackburn, our 2 U.S. senators from the state of Tennessee. So, it looks like most of the Republicans that represent the state of Tennessee were in favor of not doing the deal and shutting it down. So, I don't know that we can make a big change, but there were, if you are, let's say, if you're an independent or you're a Democrat out there and you might be listening, we appreciate you listening, by the way. You're always welcome here. But, you have a decision to make. If you think that it's a bunch of nonsense and that the government should have been shut down, then you can make a difference when you go to the ballots. Listen, thank you, Louis. Good call. Great comments. We'll talk about this again later in the program. Right now, 30 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Good afternoon. It is 3:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Mostly sunny and pretty hot, 87 degrees on Music Row. Traffic and our forecast, they're coming up in just a few minutes. As the first witness takes the stand today in the civil fraud case against former President Donald Trump in New York, ABC's Olivia Rubin says the former president has remained not only inside the courtroom during the proceedings, but appears to be a very active listener as the first day continues.
The former president still in the courtroom. Opening statements are done. Testimony is happening. And he really still is hanging on every single word in this trial. He is reacting when the judge is speaking, when Donald Bender is speaking. He is nodding. He is shaking his head. He is very engaged with the testimony that is being laid out.
The president, former president, saying this is all just a farce and nothing but a political witch hunt. U.S. officials say the United States has about $6 billion left in military funding for Ukraine. This as President Vladimir Zelensky recently visited Congress lobbying for more support. ABC's Ike Iacci is in Washington with more.
There's about $5.4 billion left for the U.S. to provide weapons and other military equipment to Ukraine from existing American stocks, according to an official. In addition, there's about $1.6 billion left from the over $25 billion Congress had previously allocated to replenish those American stocks. The official also said there's no money left to provide for Ukraine's humanitarian, budgetary, or economic needs. The official says the next announcement of U.S. military aid for Ukraine will come as early as this week.
That is the latest news. Weather and traffic are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Let's talk about DT McCall and Sons. If you have a need for appliances, or if you want to buy some furniture, maybe you need a mower. I mean, it's getting sort of late in the season for that, but you know what? You never know. Gun safes, whatever it is you need for your home, you're going to find it at DT McCall's. Now, listen, why shop there? Well, you get a huge selection. You get free delivery. You're not going to get charged for the cords and hoses that make the thing work, or you're not going to pay extra for delivery, or you're not going to pay extra for the haul away of the old thing that you don't need anymore. Listen, they're going to give you an honest price. They don't play games like the big box stores do. So listen, one other thing I really love about it, other than the fact that they've been around for more than 100 years, and you don't make it that long without having a reputation for treating people right. Word gets around. But I think the thing I like about them is that they try whenever possible to sell products that are made and manufactured right here in Middle Tennessee. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I think you should go to DT McCall's if you need something for your home. How about just checking on their website for all the locations? DTMcCalls.com. "37 minutes past the hour at 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive for the second day of October. What a busy, an incredibly busy news day. First, we have to catch up from all that nonsense that happened over the weekend with regard to, are we shutting down the government? Are we not shutting down the government? Is Matt Gaetz going to be able to kick the speaker out? And what about that guy who pulled the fire alarm? It's just so much. It's so much going on. Today is a big day for Donald Trump. He's in court for this civil trial, which I'm just going to tell you right off the bat. I think this trial is a bunch of hooey. It's just a kind of trial. It really is. In fact, it's really probably more accurately described as being. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think that one's a little more accurate for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And I got to tell you, the whole case it seems to come down to that the Attorney General of the state of New York believes that to secure loans, Donald Trump inflated the value of the properties that he owns. And, look, there's no bank that ever got defrauded. There's no bank that has ever complained. I mean, it just hasn't happened. Where is the crime here? And here's the other thing that makes this thing so silly is that let's say I'm going to sell my house, and I decide my house is it's not worth this much. But let's say I just go out there and say it's worth $1 million. I want $1 million for it. I can ask anything I want for that property. Now I can have appraisers come in and make a judgment about what it's worth. And then I can say, okay, well, that's your opinion. Somebody can come in and say, well, I think it's worth $500,000, and I'm going to offer you $500,000. Okay, what is the real value of that property? We don't know until it sells, do we? And none of these properties have sold. This is just real estate. This is the way real estate is done. You decide what you think your property is worth. You put it on the market. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But, there's no crime in saying, I believe that this piece of property is worth X amount of dollars. And again, until you put it on the market and you sell it, who's to determine who's right and who's wrong? But again, he had other people come in. There were other people who came in and looked at these properties. I mean, banks don't give you huge loans without looking at a piece of property and saying, if you're going to put that down as collateral, if you're going to say, yeah, this is how I want to, get a loan and this Mar-a-Lago is my collateral. Well, banks are not going to just take your word for it. They're going to go out there and they're going to look at it. And if they feel like it's a good deal for them, they'll give you the loan. If they think it's not a good deal, they're going to say, I'm sorry, we can't give you that loan based on our assessment of the value of that property. If you got the loan, somebody had to sign off at it at the bank. And this is what's the silliest thing about this whole mess with the Trump trial is that, everybody seems to think that he's, they're trying to claim that he's defrauding people. And this is just the way it goes. I once saw a guy come almost, I think there was a, what do you call it? An attempt to take over a country, a company, an unfriendly attempt.
Like a coup?
Yeah, well, no, just some outsiders wanted to come in and take over a company and buy them out. And the way they made the case was they said, well, they have overvalued the value of the land that they hold. It was basically a land company. Well, I don't know that you can make that case. Again, if you're going out and getting a loan and you go to your bank, you got to show them that you've got the money and that you're worth and your credit references is all good and all of that. And no bank is going to give you a huge loan without making sure that the collateral you're putting down is really worth what you say it is. I mean, if you're really out there, way beyond, what you got, what it's really worth, the bank is going to say no. Banks don't give you loans unless you can convince them that the property that you're using as collateral or whatever it is you're using as collateral really has the value that you say it does, or at least enough value to cover the loan. So there's no bank that's raising its hand and said, we got defrauded by Donald Trump. There's no bank that is saying that. The banks are happy. Donald Trump got the loans and never anybody raised one iota of concern until the Attorney General of New York comes along and says, well, you know what? I think that, Mar-a-Lago is worth, well, as the judge said, $18 million. Mar-a-Lago, $18 million. That would, friends, it's hard to imagine, but that would be the steal of the century. He thinks it's worth $1 billion. I don't know. I think that's a little high. But even other people who have looked at it, and realtors who do this for a living, and appraisers that do this for others, it's at least worth $300 million, way more than the $18 million that the court seems to think it is. This judge doesn't know squat, or they're just out to do anything they can to hurt Donald Trump. And I'm telling you, it is a bunch of hooey. There's no doubt about it. The former president was in court today and talked about it a little bit. And he just says, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything wrong. So on one hand, you've got this Donald Trump thing going on. And on the other hand, you've got real news about the Hunter Biden mess that continues to be investigated. I'm just looking to make sure I got all my stories here. Yeah, Hunter Biden. Now, here's the latest on that. Hunter Biden is suspected of hiring prostitutes from Eastern European sex trafficking ring during drug binges and then falsifying checks to pay the women. This is according to Treasury documents. I mean, is this another thing? This is actually in the Daily Mail. And the story that I have here, I'm not going to be able to do it justice. You can find the link on yourfarm.com. But basically, here's the first few graphs. Bank investigators suspected Hunter Biden was associated with a sex trafficking ring and falsified checks to pay prostitutes. Suspicious activity reports, the so-called SARS, reviewed by the DailyMail.com, show the first Sons accounts were being monitored as late as December 2019 after investigators found payments from Hunter and his companies to a suspected Eastern European prostitution ring. As previously reported, filed to the Department of Treasury on December 17, 2019 by financial crime investigators at Wells Fargo, they picked out 25 individuals linked to the suspected ring and almost $7 million worth of suspicious transactions, some of which included checks from Hunter that they believe may have been falsified to hide his payments to hookers from his business account. Reports shown in the Daily Mail by a confidential source said Biden has sent money to individuals who may be part of an Eastern European prostitution ring, and that investigators were monitoring several Wells Fargo customers suspected of participating in a sex trafficking ring. Others associated with the ring, including women with Russian passports and a China-based company to which money was funneled. And, of course, there are all kinds of pictures on Hunter's laptop that seem to suggest that, this isn't too far off the mark. Daily Mail has previously reported documents, texts, and videos showing Hunter spent a staggering $30,000 on escorts in just 5 months, including transactions documented in other suspicious activity reports filed by banks to the Treasury Department. This new document flagged potentially even greater sums spent on drugs and prostitutes. It tracked $1.16 million sent to Hunter's company Owasco from his business partner and Biden friend Rob Walker, a former Clinton administration official. All right, so let's just compare and contrast these things. Donald Trump is in court right now facing a trial where he could lose a lot of his business interests because the Attorney General, in her infinite knowledge of real estate practices, has decided that he has overstated the value of certain properties that he owns. Now, many other people have looked at those allegations and said there's just not any there, that she doesn't have a good feel for what's going on. And by the way, you don't have any bank that's complaining. There's nobody out there that said I was defrauded. Everything was passed and done in an official way, but yet he's on trial. Yet we have more information about Hunter Biden spending $30,000 on sex trafficking partners, and he's what so far? Well, he's gonna have to show up in court tomorrow and explain why he had a gun. That's all that's happening to Hunter Biden. The investigation, by the way, that continues on Capitol Hill into the activities of Hunter Biden. I just want to remind you, it's not really aimed at Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is basically Joe Biden's salesman. Hunter Biden went out around the world when Joe Biden was vice president and met with some of the most despicable business thugs on the earth, struck up business relationships with them so that they would have the protection of the Biden family. It was a protection racket, as evidenced by the fact that, you got Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma. Burisma's got an investigation going against it. Joe Biden sweeps into town and forces Ukrainian officials to fire the person doing the investigation into Burisma, again, a company that had his son on the board. Now, which of these two things sounds crooked to you? A guy whose worst crime may have been overstating the value of a piece of property, but I mean, honestly, who knows? Because the property has never been put up for sale. Or a guy who was taking his office and doing favors for the people that his son was doing business for. Which of those two things seems wrong to you? I don't think there's anything wrong with what Donald Trump has done, and I continue to think there's an awful lot of smoke, and we may yet get to the fire on this whole situation with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, but it doesn't seem fair the way the courts are treating the former president of the United States. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management say, well, it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. They have a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed as you head into retirement. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. Here's the number. Write it down, 615-488-9303. That's 615-488-9303. And at the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. I mean, you just get on the phone, you talk to the experts at Beacon, you give them some information, and then you just stand back. You have nothing to lose except for all of the worry. They'll come back to you with a bunch of recommendations, or maybe they'll tell you, hey, you're on the right path, everything's good. But one way or the other, wouldn't it be nice to replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path? The number again is 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing education and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.
The first day of former President Trump's New York fraud trial is in the books, and the debate over funding for Ukraine continues. Those stories and more coming up at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, let's take a look at what's going on with the markets right now. Dow Jones Industrial ended the day down 74 points, S&P up but less than $1, and NASDAQ is up about 88 points. So a mixed board here today. Oil has come down just a bit, maybe about 2%, but I don't know if that's going to be the way it looks long term. Joining us now on the line from Beacon Capital Management is John Maxon to tell us more about what else is driving the market this week. Hello, John.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, you're right. It was a mixed bag today. The futures actually started out really strong because of the stopgap legislation that happened over the weekend to avoid the government shutdown. But boy, it didn't take very long for the market to pull back and yields to really resume their climb. So Treasury yields right now are at the highest level they've been in over a decade. So that's something to keep an eye on. The market is still grappling with what higher rates for a longer period of time are going to mean to corporate earnings and, of course, to economic growth. So there's some employment reports that are coming out later this week. That's something to keep a close eye on. To your point, energy prices are down a little bit. Is that sustainable? Well, we're going to see. And don't forget the restart of student loan payments. So a lot of uncertainty, and the market doesn't like uncertainty.
All right. Thank you very much, John Maxon. Learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 58 minutes now past the hour.
Good afternoon. It is 4 p.m., and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mostly sunny sky, 87 degrees on Music Row, a complete forecast, and another traffic report in just a few minutes. Former President Trump emerging from the Manhattan courtroom after the first day of his New York fraud trial. Among other charges, Mr. Trump is accused of inflating the value of his business holdings in order to secure loans. The former president remaining defiant after today's proceedings.
And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics.
Trump also claims the case is just a waste of everyone's time and money, and it's keeping him off of the campaign trail. The continuing resolution to keep the federal government running for the next few weeks brought a sigh of relief across Washington this weekend. But to get through the temporary fix, many things were left out, including funding for Ukraine. President Biden reacted on Sunday, saying America's support for Ukraine can't be, quote, interrupted. On Monday, Matthew Miller at the State Department says his team was equally disappointed, fearing this could impact the advancements made at expelling Russia.
I'd like to echo the president's disappointment that despite longstanding and strong bipartisan support for Ukraine as it fights back against Russia's invasion, that the continuing resolution that passed Congress on Saturday did not include desperately needed support.
On the South Lawn of the White House today, President Biden held an event celebrating the Americans with Disabilities Act. The bill, which was passed back in July of 1990, gave people with disabilities a comprehensive set of civil rights, including the right to work, live, and access to public spaces. But the president says there is still more work to do.
President Biden praising the Americans with Disabilities Act, signed more than 3 decades ago, but saying it did not solve everything.
Disabled Americans are still 3 times less likely to have a job. They're often earn less for the exact work someone else is doing as not disabled.
The president also saying many disabled Americans can't vote or commute to work or school, and that he's working on rules to make that easier. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
That is the latest news, traffic, and weather. They're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Good afternoon. Let's kick off hour number 2 of The Drive on this second day of October. We're so glad that you're with us for The Drive as we get you home safely. We drive you home, and we drive the liberals a little crazy. We have a twofold mission here. Really, both those things. Drive you home safely, drive the liberals just a little bit crazy. So, buckle up, everybody. Here we go. Let's start with our 2024 update because a lot of ground to cover here. I'd like to give you just a quick sampling of the polls because everybody says, well, I don't know if I believe in the polls. Well, okay. But a lot of the polls are showing the same thing, which generally suggests they may be on to something, okay? If you were to hold the general election today, and if it were a fight between Trump and Biden, according to a brand new poll from the Harris Organization, Trump would win by 3. Wow, yeah. I mean, we had one the other day where Trump would win by 10, and everybody said, well, that may be an outlier. I don't know. I've seen Trump wins by, New York Post has one. Trump wins by 3. You also see an occasional poll that said Biden would win by 1, but you don't see any polls that suggest that Biden's going to win by a large amount. I mean, the polls that you see out there where it looks like somebody might really have an edge are all in the favor of the former president, Donald Trump. So that's pretty interesting. And let's see, where are we right now in as far as the Republican nomination process goes? We've seen Trump anywhere up to 62% of the vote. There's a new Harris poll that says Trump leads DeSantis by, just 45 points.
Just a mere 45.
A mere 45 points. I mean, he's in court today, and they got all these charges against him, and he's still leading DeSantis by, I don't know, the worst case for Trump that I've seen out there is that he's still leading DeSantis by 35 points. No, he's got this thing sewn up, it seems to me, and I don't see anything that changes it. But I mean, 45 points. So it's Trump 56, DeSantis 11, Haley 7, Ramaswamy 8. So actually, Ramaswamy's in third place behind DeSantis. Christie 1, Scott 1, Burgum 1, Hutchison 0, goose egg. Okay, so there's that. Wednesday in Detroit, when asked about his competitors for the nomination, Trump said they're all job candidates. They'll do anything. Secretary of this or that. They even say VP. I don't know. Does anybody see any VP in the group? I don't think so. So anchor Maria Bartiromo asked Governor Ron DeSantis, if Trump came to you and said, let's partner up, you be my VP, would you do it? DeSantis said, no, I'm running for president. And then he added, we need somebody that can serve 2 terms. We need somebody that can win states like Georgia and Arizona, which President Trump cannot do or did not do, even though candidates like McCain and Romney had no problem winning those states. Probably not his best argument to conservatives. We need somebody, and I'm the only one running, including Donald Trump. Everything I promised the voters I would do as governor, I delivered on. I mean, he makes a good case in that regard, but I mean, it's not resonating. It's not catching fire. And I can't imagine a scenario where, if this last poll, for example, or many of the most recent polls are accurate, that I can't imagine a scenario where DeSantis can overcome a 45-point gap. I mean, last week the New York Post said it was a 52-point gap. So it's a big gap is what it is. There's no doubt about that. Democrats are freaking out. Okay, I mean, it is true that if you ask Democrats, Biden, Kennedy, Williamson, who are you going to vote for? They all say, well, 45 points, they say Biden is the guy. But I got to tell you, the confidence that they have in Biden is not anything like the support Trump has. You can have support that is a mile wide, but only an inch deep. And if you really look behind the scenes, Democrats are really getting nervous about Joe Biden and whether or not he can actually rise to the occasion. Here, we're going to sort of listen in on what Democrats are saying to each other. This is from the nationalpulse.com. Representative Dean Phillips, a powerful congressional Democrat, has warned that his party is sleepwalking into a repeat of 2016, made comments with Politico. Phillips said he believes Democrats need to consider an alternative candidate to President Joe Biden, adding, "We should let Americans decide who is best positioned to beat Donald Trump," because clearly the data is saying a majority of Americans do not believe, unfortunately, this is a quote, he's a Democrat, that it is President Biden. The Minnesota Democrat has served in Congress since winning election in 2018. During his tenure, he has voted for President Biden's agenda 100% of the time. The numbers are saying that despite successful policy implementation, people are not pleased. Responding to some of his Democrat colleagues who say party critics of Biden need to chill out, in my professional life, both in the public sector and the private sector, chilling out has never been a recipe for success in addressing any problem. He later added, chilling out does not make for electoral success. So they're really starting to freak out, and especially when you consider the possibility that there might well be a third, maybe even a fourth party candidate. I mean, there's always more than one or two people running for president. Serious third party candidate. Joe Manchin, Democrat, West Virginia, said he will decide by the end of this year whether he will launch a third party bid for the White House. This, according to the Epoch Times. Manchin faced repeated questions about his third party aspirations on Fox News on Sunday. He told host and very nice person Shannon Bream that people are not satisfied right now with the current field of Democrat and Republican candidates. Why not have options, Mr. Manchin said. A lot of people like you as an option, Ms. Bream replied, and you've said once you make a decision, a target will be on your back, so you're waiting till the right time. But the fact is the calendar is now going to start working against you. What is the timeline? Do you have any announcements to make this morning? Manchin replied that he did not have an announcement to make, but he said he is open to running. I think, yes, I could bring it together. I've said before, the end of the year I will. We're still planning. I think Manchin's in. I think he's sitting out there waiting to see what percolates, because there's an awful lot of pressure on Biden and Kamala Harris right now. Third parties, no labels, could skew the 2024 elections in the GOP's favor, according to the President of the United States. Joe Biden is concerned that a third-party challenge from no labels, that's the group that Manchin might actually hook up with, could end up playing in the favor of the GOP nominee. He did an interview with ProPublica. President Biden was asked about the involvement of former Democrat Senator Joe Lieberman in pushing a potential third-party challenge. He has a Democrat right to do. There's no reason not to do that. Now it's going to help the other guy, and he knows it. So that's a political decision he's making, and I obviously think that it's a mistake. Mr. Lieberman is the founding chairman of No Labels, an organization that intends to set up the groundwork to run an alternative candidate for the 2024 presidential race if the election turns into a rematch between former President Donald Trump and President Biden. The organization's leadership is composed of both Republicans and Democrats. In Arizona, 15,000 people have registered with No Labels. Though the number appears small, these voters can play a significant role in flipping the state in favor of a political candidate, given that the last presidential election was won by a narrow margin. I think they're right. I think if No Labels does decide to launch and potentially, let's say Manchin is their candidate, I think that there's a pretty good chance that they would probably take votes away, not from Trump, because the Trump voters are loyal, but the Biden voters are not. In fact, they're worried. And so I think a lot of people on the Democrat side of the equation not completely happy. I mean they don't like Trump, but they're not crazy about Biden either. That's the thing. And they're certainly not crazy about Kamala. We got a lot to talk about with regard to Kamala. Barack Obama was confronted by reporters on Saturday, and they asked him directly if Michelle was running for president. made this call as he left Funk Restaurant in Beverly Hills. Yeah, well, it's good to be the former president of the United States, hanging out high-dollar restaurants in Beverly Hills. Obama remained mum after being confronted amid the swirling rumors suggesting Michelle is preparing to run for president. Now, I know that a lot of people look out there and say this is going to happen. Last month, Republican Senator Ted Cruz predicted Michelle Obama would be deployed to take Joe Biden's place in the 2024 race at the last minute. They are left wing of the Democrat Party, and when the media turns on the presumed Democrat nominee, I think that is the cutting edge of the Democrat intelligence saying we have to cut bait and find someone. He believes it will be Michelle. I have a lot of respect for Ted Cruz. If you want to know raw intelligence, probably the smartest man in Congress. Very smart guy. But I think he's wrong here. I'm just going to say it again, and I'm digging myself in a hole, maybe, but I don't think so. Because a lot of people look and say, well, she's the one who could run and win, or at least have the support of the Democrat Party. And I agree that she's very popular among Democrats. And I agree that if she got into the race, she might be able to pull off a victory against Donald Trump because she would be very popular. She would unify Democrats in a way they are not unified at the moment. But I also go back to everything I heard about Michelle Obama when she was in Washington as the First Lady, that she detested the town, that she detested politics, that she hated with a passion being inside the White House. She considered it like a prison. Anybody who talked to her, the word that always came back is she's miserable. She's miserable at the White House and does not want to be there. And, she didn't, I don't think if she'd had her way that she would have ever, even been in favor of Barack running for a second term. That she said when it was all over, she said, okay, Barack, you've had your 8 years. Now I get 8 years to do what I want to do. And it seems to me that, someone who detested the city that much and detested being in the White House complex just doesn't have the fire in her belly, in my estimation, to run. Anyway, as Barack Obama left the restaurant, they shouted questions at him. Is Michelle going to run? Is she getting ready to run? And he just waved and got in the car and said nothing. There's a lot of people. I mean, Ted Cruz, here's Sarah Palin. Here's Palin's scenario. Kamala will be forced to resign as vice president, sent to the Senate to replace Dianne Feinstein. Then Gavin Newsom will be subbed in as VP. Then they will remove Joe Biden from office. Well, okay. Already we know that some of that did not happen. Oh, you haven't heard? Well, there's more to this story about what might happen with Dianne Feinstein's seats. Turns out that Gavin Newsom has picked the choice, and it's not Michelle Obama. I'll give you that story coming up in just a moment. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Gracepoint Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. You marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan, you could save a ton of money. Now, you've heard me say it before. Gracepoint, they take their time with each patient. They will see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City for year after year after year. They do COVID testing, and they can have all kinds of treatments. If you get the current round of COVID, get in quickly. They have some therapies that can help you get over it perhaps a little bit quicker. Gracepoint Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. Call 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
The first day of former President Trump's New York fraud trial has concluded. A homemade bomb at the end of a fishing line? Well, that's what a Benton County, Tennessee fisherman encountered this weekend. We'll also have today's money news. Those stories coming up at the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, it's 25 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock. I read a lot of people who were out there throwing out this idea, as Sarah Palin did, about, well, I've got this whole thing figured out. Here's what's going to happen. Dianne Feinstein dies, and of course, she passed away last week at the age of 90. And so Gavin Newsom has to pick an appointment. What they'll do is they will make Kamala go back to the Senate as a senator from California. And then they will, pick somebody else to run. Maybe even Gavin Newsom would then be pulled in as a vice presidential candidate to President Biden. And then they will go ahead and go to the election like that. And then after he gets elected, then they will try to push Biden aside for Gavin Newsom. Well, that didn't happen. And that scenario is not going to happen. I never really put much into it because she only had 15 months left on her term, and there's already 3 people running for the office. So, it would be, if you've got a Democrat and they're out there, making a serious competitive run for the seat once occupied by Dianne Feinstein, well, then, how do you then go around them and put Kamala? And would Kamala want to go back to the Senate for 15 months? And then run for re-election? Why would she do that? I mean, that's a step down. So I never really had put much stock in that scenario. I know a lot of people did, and they thought, well, this is how it's all going to play out. And I really wasn't on board with that. And now we know that's not going to happen because Gavin Newsom has actually chosen the person who will fill in for Dianne Feinstein for the next 15 months until the election. So eager, according to Bongino.com, were Democrats to find a replacement for the late Dianne Feinstein Senate seat that they apparently didn't even bother to pick someone who lives in California. The appointment of LaFonza Butler to become California's newest senator is already raising some eyebrows, as she appears to be registered to vote in Maryland with an address in that state. Registration records indicate that Butler lives in Silver Spring, Maryland, with her mailing address the same as her residential. She also registered there as a Democrat as of September 11th, 2022. In case you don't know, Butler is the president of Emily's List, the self-described nation's largest resource dedicated to electing Democrat pro-choice women to office, and a longtime leader in California before her move to Maryland. I don't know how they're going to pull this off if she has registered to vote and she has an address that's registered in Maryland. She was a leader in California for many years, but her address is Maryland. How in the world can you appoint someone to be the new senator from California when they live in Maryland? On Sunday night, the newest California senator's biography on the Emmys List website listed that she grew up in Magnolia, Mississippi, and attended one of the country's premier historical black colleges or universities, Jackson State University. She lives in Maryland with her partner Nikki Lee and their daughter Nyla. Yes, she is openly gay. She will be the first black lesbian, I think, to serve in Congress. As of 7 a.m. this morning, though, the organization Emily's List removed the line that said she lives in Maryland. Butler was formerly Kamala Harris's 2020 campaign advisor. As radio host Dan O'Donnell noticed in real time, Butler removed part of her biography on Twitter that listed Maryland as the location of her home. Similarly, the Spectator's Mac Foldy found that Butler's LinkedIn page also listed her location as Maryland. Silver Spring. It's just literally, it's just outside the Washington Beltway in Maryland. I used to live there for a short period of time. This is apparently actually legal Yeah, yes, hours after Foldy's post, Butler's location, according to LinkedIn, changed to Los Angeles metropolitan area. That's a little vague, isn't it? This is actually legal, as a Senate candidate only needs to live in a state at the time of election, and Butler is being appointed to the position. Regardless, it's not a good look, and she knows it. So she's a Marylander with California roots, and she is about as liberal as they come. And definitely she is pro-choice, pro-abortion, and she is, as I mentioned, she will be the first black lesbian, I think, to ever have served in the United States Congress, at least as far as we know, openly. Here's another version of it from the New York Post. California's newest senator is a resident of the state of Maryland. Democrat Golden State Governor Gavin Newsom announced Sunday evening he's tapping Emily List President LaFonza Butler to serve out the term of Dianne Feinstein. Records indicate she spent years far from her constituents that she will represent in well, at least when she goes to Washington, she won't have to have a new home. She's got one. She'll just have to get on the red line, the Metro Red Line, and you'll be Capitol Hill to Silver Spring. I don't know, maybe 10 minutes on the red line. A Federal Election Commission filing from the end of August for the abortion rights advocacy group listed Silver Spring as Butler's place of residence. So how does she then reestablish her residency in the state of California? She got to go to California and rent an apartment, I suppose, and then be there and go back there and operate out of there. I suppose that's all you need, because apparently in California, you don't have to be a resident to serve, to be nominated or to run, but you got to be there when elected. So she's been appointed. She'll have to set up some kind of residency in California. But just one larger point here, it wasn't Kamala Harris. And folks who keep looking for that outcome, I think, we all wonder what's going to happen. But this wasn't it. 32 past the hour now on Super Talk.
Good afternoon. It's 4:32. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mostly sunny sky. We're still at 87 degrees. A complete forecast and the latest traffic report are all upcoming. Former President Trump emerging from the Manhattan courtroom today after the first day of his New York fraud trial. Among other charges, Mr. Trump is accused of inflating the value of his business holdings in order to secure loans. The former president remaining defiant.
And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics.
Trump also claims that the case not only a waste of everyone's time and money, but the main concern, it's keeping him off the campaign trail. Fishermen casting their line in a pond near Camden this weekend made an alarming discovery when they hooked a homemade bomb. A responding Tennessee Benton County Sheriff's deputy confirmed it was a homemade bomb made of tannerite with a fuse attached that apparently didn't go off. A deputy tried to shoot it 3 times to get it to go off, but that didn't happen. They think it was just too waterlogged to explode. Still not clear on how the deputies did, in fact, dispose of that device. With today's money news, here is Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks closed mixed to start the week in the month of October on continued worries about interest rates. The Dow fell 75 points while the S&P rose a fraction and the Nasdaq closed up 88. Rising mortgage rates are keeping more prospective home buyers out of the market, and they're discouraging homeowners who are locked in ultra-low rates from listing their homes for sale. That combination is worsening the affordability crunch, especially for first-time home buyers, and experts say it could extend the nation's home sales slump. Gas prices are soaring in California, mainly because production is down at West Coast refineries. The AAA says the average price in the Golden State is $6.08 a gallon. That's up some 80 cents from a month ago, and it's much higher than the national average. The Anderson Economic Group says 2 weeks of the United Auto Workers strike has resulted in nearly $4 billion of losses.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather, they are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Let's talk about United Structural Systems, a company that, quite frankly, has been around for about 25 years. They got 25,000 satisfied residential customers. So if you have a problem with waterproofing or foundation issues, cracking bricks, I mean, you know all the things to look for. Well, then why don't you reach out to USS? Here's the number, 615-488-7855. They'll come out, they'll assess your situation, they'll give you a recommendation, and if you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. Satisfied like Chris, who said, the crew that worked on our house has been top-notch. I appreciate the integrity, the speed of feedback, the quality of work provided by all who have worked with us. That's the kind of reputation they have. I mean, these are really good people, and they will deal with you honestly. And by the way, I'll tell you something about the attitude and culture there you may not know. A lot of people who have been working there have been working since they opened the doors 25 years ago. What does that tell you about the company? They're serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at ussTN.com. You can reach United Structural Systems at 615-488-7855. 40 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. We're well on our way on the drive here today. This is the first Monday in October. Anybody know? Anybody know what happens on the first Monday in October? Raise your hand. Do you know? Do you know? Supreme Court. First Monday in October, they begin their new term. The High Court. There's a movie about it called First Monday. It was completely fictional. Yeah, the Supreme Court meets on the first Monday to start their new term, and I have a list here of some of the things that they might be considering right now. Second Amendment cases. The court has agreed to take up U.S. versus Rahimi, a case that could determine whether a federal law banning people subject to restraining orders due to domestic violence violates the Second Amendment of the Constitution. In other words, you get a restraining order against you, and it's due to domestic violence. In some cases, they will not let you have a gun. They will come in and try to take your gun away, and it's not in all states, but it is in some states. The question is this a violation of the Second Amendment of the Constitution? This involves a man from Texas by the name of Zaki Rahimi, who is charged with illegal gun possession while subject to a domestic violence restraining order after assaulting his girlfriend. Rahimi challenged the law after being charged under it in 2021. The New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in February declared that the 1994 law was unconstitutional in a ruling that applied to Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. That's the 5th Circuit. The circuit initially had upheld the law but withdrew its opinion following the Supreme Court's landmark Second Amendment ruling last year. So now the High Court has decided to take it up and see whether or not the Fifth Circuit Court properly interpreted their recent ruling on Second Amendment. So I don't know how that's going to be. That they took it up is interesting. I don't know. This is a close one. I don't know how that's going to come out. Last week, the Supreme Court agreed to decide the legality of Republican-backed state laws in Texas and Florida that constrain the ability of social media companies to curb content on their platforms that these businesses deem objectionable. The justices took up two cases challenged by technology industry groups who argued that these 2021 laws restricting the content moderation practices of large social media platforms violate the First Amendment. One case, this is according to the Epoch Times, of course, one case challenges the funding of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And if the top court rules against the government, some analysts have said it could limit the power of other independent federal agencies, such as the Federal Service. The case is Consumer Financial Protection Bureau versus Community Financial Services Association of America. It is an appeal from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Again, the Fifth, that's Texas, Louisiana, and I think Florida. Is that right? I just read it. It was right here. Yes, Texas and Florida. All right, so the Consumer Financial, this case is expected to end by the end of June. The court's 6-3 conservative majority has limited in past cases the regulatory power of federal agencies in a series of rulings, and I would expect that might also happen again here. Trump cases. Even larger election issues could be coming to the court as soon as a multitude of federal judges have weighed a handful of appeals related to indictments of former President Donald Trump in federal courts in Washington and Florida, as well as state courts in New York and Georgia. It's not clear if the court will ever be asked to issue a decision on the cases. They are loath to get into cases like that, the High Court is, but they might. They might be asked to decide some of these questions. And I think some of these questions are questions that can only be determined and finalized by the High Court. So we'll see what happens. Oh, and this one, this is really, really important because, I mean, so many people have talked to me about this, about the 14th Amendment. Will the Democrats and will they try to use the 14th Amendment to challenge Donald Trump's qualifications to run for re-election? The Supreme Court has declined to hear that case. On Monday, they declined to hear a long-shot bid to disqualify former President Trump from running for office under the 14th Amendment. This is from thehill.com. In a brief unsigned order Monday, the justices declined to take up one of the cases after the case known as Castro. It comes from a guy named John Castro, who's also running for the Republican presidential nomination. Lost in a lower court. So the lower court voted against Castro. He appealed to the high court, and the high court, by taking no action, by saying we're not going to take up the case, that effectively ends the matter. The lower case, the lower courts have decided the matter, and the Supreme Court will not consider. Supreme Court can deny to hear cases, but appellate courts cannot. I'm still pursuing decisions in the liberal appellate courts, and here there's a full-blown trial scheduled for October 20th in New Hampshire, a bench trial in Arizona, he said. Beyond Castro's cases, various other lawsuits have been launched against Trump under the 14th Amendment, which states no person shall hold elected office who engaged in insurrection or rebellion. A lot of people looked at that, though, and said that all has to do, it's a relic of the Civil War, not intended to be used in this way. And apparently the high court, by declining to pick up the case, has voted that the lower court has handled it properly, at least so far. Here's one for you. And it's a legal case. Judge orders New York to dole out nearly $500,000 in legal fees to the NRA after a Supreme Court victory. The NRA says that the $447,000 award is a symbol that justice is definitely on our side. Again, from Fox News, a New York judge ordered the state to pay nearly $500,000 in legal fees to the National Rifle Association after the gun rights group won a major case on the Supreme Court. In a case decided last summer, the Supreme Court ruled that a New York public carrying license law was unconstitutional, and the ability to carry a pistol in public was a constitutional right guaranteed by the Second Amendment. The NRA was a party in the case, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, and last week a New York judge ordered the state to pay $447,700.82 in legal fees. Let's make sure we get the 82 cents in there. The NRA regards the award in the NYSRPA versus Bruin case as a pivotal victory, a symbol that justice is definitely on our side. You know, generally when a judge does that, it is determined that the case that had been brought was a frivolous case. Not always, but some of the cases. And so what they have basically done, the NRA has gone back to the court and said, look, we won, and now we have all these legal fees, and we think that the loser should pay the legal fees, and the court has agreed. The payout only scratches the surface and covers a mere third, they say, of the group's legal expenses. At the NRA, they were thanking the devoted NRA members that helped cover the brunt of the legal fees in the case, noting that New York refuses to fully compensate. Before the high court weighed in, the standard for carrying weapons required an applicant to show proper cause. There were several states, by the way, that had laws like this. I remember in the state of Maryland, you could get a concealed carry permit. I think it had to be approved by the person in charge of the state patrol, as I recall. And the problem, I mean, I never got a concealed carry permit because, number one, you had to prove that you had a good reason for it. And I think I probably could have made that case. But it was ridiculous because if you live in the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area, you are going between these jurisdictions all the time. And, if I were to, let's say, be in Maryland, live in Maryland, and get a concealed carry permit in Maryland, I would be fine until I got to the border with D.C., and then I would have to pull my car over, unload the pistol, put it in the trunk before I proceeded into the District of Columbia, which is where I probably really needed the gun in the first place. That's the way it was back in those days, and so I never actually got a concealed carry permit. One of the first things I did when I left the state of Maryland, as you know, I've told my story many times, I left Maryland and went to my home at the time that I had in Florida before coming here to Tennessee. First thing I did when I got to Florida was I got a concealed carry permit. And as soon as I got to Tennessee, I got another one. And I'm so glad that I live in a state where this kind of stupidity does not reign. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Hey, listen, Dr. Kevin Mitchell and the Wellness Institute is bringing back the half-off spinal decompression treatment and half-off the KT knee machine. That's a really effectively spinal decompression for your knee. That's half off for the month of October. Do you have any tingling, numbness, weakness, back pain, disc tingling, numbness back in the pain, bulging, herniated discs, spinal stenosis? Have you heard any of these things? Or if you're just in pain generally back there, why don't you take advantage of this thing that's going on now at the Wellness Institute of Nashville? Here's the number, 246-5009. 5009. That's 615-246-5009. Are you losing quality of life, are not able to do routine life things because you have back pain or knee pain? Take advantage of Wellness Institute's $23 new patient special and then half off the cost of spinal decompression treatments. I'm telling you, I've gone through that spinal decompression treatment for my lower back and also for my neck. It has really helped me a lot. I think it will help you. So take advantage of the exam, consultation, x-rays if needed. Bring in your own MRI or x-rays. The first treatment is only $23 if you are a new patient. And you'll be able to get half off spinal decompression and half off if you need to go on the KT machine for your knee. Dr. Mitchell is a nation's leader in spinal decompression. It starts with a phone call, 615-246-5009. Learn more about the Wellness Institute of Nashville by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing education and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.
The first day of former President Trump's New York fraud trial has come to a close. A young Connecticut boy accidentally shoots himself in the head at his home, and investigators find dozens more weapons there. And a homemade bomb at the end of a fishing line? Well, that's what a Camden, Tennessee fisherman encountered this weekend. We'll have those stories and more at 5 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's a great story, Jay. I love that story about the bomb. You go out there, you cast a line, and you pull up a bomb. I mean, come on.
Yeah, a lazy weekend out on the pond, and uh-oh.
It sounds like somebody was doing a different kind of fishing there at one point. It went awry. I don't know what's going on. Listen, congratulations to the Two-Tone Blue. We're not going to have Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports because Mac Morey is too ashamed to come here and defend his prediction on the score. But 240 yards of offense by Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry even had a touchdown pass. What a thing that was.
Yeah, I was at the game, Brian. It was amazing.
Yeah, I love when they do stuff out of the Wildcat like that. That's great stuff. But anyway, congratulations, and I think Mac's supposed to be back here tomorrow, so we'll hold him to account for his predictions late last week. It is now 59 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon, almost evening, 5:01, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got sun and 85 degrees, an updated forecast, and the traffic report. They're both on the way. Former President Trump commenting on his case today after leaving the New York County Supreme Court in Lower Manhattan after day one of the civil case brought against him and his business by the New York Attorney General. Trump saying the case is all about politics, but also praising Judge Arthur Engoron for some of the proceedings at the end of the hearing that he says concerned a statute of limitations that Trump believes went in his favor. Here's Trump commenting about the case.
This is called election interference, and worse than that, really much worse than that. And you don't get much worse than election interference, especially we're talking presidential election.
A Connecticut boy in critical condition after shooting himself Saturday with a gun stored in his home, one of dozens found there. ABC's Dave Packer has more.
23 firearms found in the Watertown, Connecticut home say police where a 14-year-old shot himself in the head while apparently playing with a gun in a bedroom. He was alone inside the house when it happened. Many of the guns not properly secured, says Watertown Police Chief Joshua Berniger.
The Watertown Oakville community is heartbroken by this preventable tragedy. We are praying for a speedy and full recovery for our young resident.
Berniger says the teen was found by his grandmother bloody at the bottom of a flight of stairs. She called 911. An investigation is ongoing.
The teen lived with his mother and grandmother in the home. A New Jersey driver accused of evading tolls rather creatively. Here's ABC's Derek Dennis reporting.
Commuting from New Jersey into New York City can be expensive, with a toll costing as much as $17. But instead of doing what millions of drivers do and pay up, Port Authority police say Adam Jimenez got crafty, using a makeshift license plate flipping device to electronically flip his license plate before driving through the toll at the George Washington Bridge. Turns out an officer saw the license plate suddenly change and pulled Jimenez over. Among his charges, theft of service, possession of burglar tools, unclear plates, counterfeiting, and failure to show documents, and he'll likely have to pay his tolls anyway.
And here in Tennessee, fishermen casting their line in a pond near Camden over the weekend made a rather alarming discovery when they hooked a homemade bomb. A responding Benton County Sheriff's deputy confirmed, it was a homemade bomb made of tannerite with a fuse attached that apparently didn't go off. A deputy, he tried to shoot it 3 times, but it didn't go off. They thought maybe it was just too waterlogged. It's unclear at this time just how deputies did get rid, or if they did get rid of that bomb. Here's the latest news. That was the latest news. Hello, traffic and weather. They're on the way. I'm Jay Harper, I think. WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 8 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock, hour number 3 of the big extravaganza about to kick off. And we thank you so much for being a part of what we do. I don't want for you to think that I don't really appreciate, because I do greatly appreciate the fact that you have found favor with what we do and that you join us here each afternoon as we try to decipher what's going on in the world around us. I need to make a confession. I mean, this happens, I don't know, once every 10 years or so. I was wrong. I mean, I thought we were headed for a government shutdown. When I left you here on Friday, I said, look, it's still up in the air, but I'm saying 70% chance we're going to have a shutdown. Turns out we didn't have a shutdown. McCarthy pulls a rabbit out of the hat, goes to the floor, it passes. But it was an action that is not without controversy, and we're going to try to unfold all of what happened. Okay, so you have a government shutdown that was going to go into effect at midnight on, I guess it was Saturday. And so it looked like that the House was divided and that the Senate was not in line with what the House wanted to do. And it looked like the whole thing was going to go up in flames and we were going to have a government shutdown today. That didn't happen. It didn't happen. At the last minute, Kevin McCarthy said the following and decided to put forward a measure that would not have the support of all Republicans, but would have the support of a lot of Democrats. Here is what McCarthy said.
If somebody wants to make a motion against me, bring it. There has to be an adult in the room.
So he's talking about, somebody coming after him. Well, that one somebody would be Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, congressman from Florida, had said that if you put up a spending bill, a short-term spending bill, and it only passes because the Democrats supported it in big numbers, then you will no longer be my speaker, and I will come after you, and I will come up with an order to vacate the chair, and then I will hopefully get you thrown out as speaker. Now, it's big talk if you can pull it off. And Matt Gaetz said today, or said over the weekend and again today, that he will bring forward a motion to vacate the chair because of what McCarthy did. Now, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes and 45 seconds of Matt Gaetz, and then I'll give you the response, which runs about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, so you can hear both sides, get a full explanation of their positions. First, we start with Matt Gaetz, who says, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put forth a motion to vacate the chair and see if I can strip McCarthy of his speakership.
Kevin McCarthy's going to get his wish. I don't think the adult in the room would allow America to sit atop a $33 trillion debt facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. I don't think the adult in the room would allow $8 trillion of this debt to come into refinancing at a higher level without serious spending cuts. And I don't think the adult in the room would lie to House conservatives. And that is exactly what Kevin McCarthy did. In January, to get the speakership, Kevin had to agree to certain guardrails on spending, and he had to agree to a process that would allow us to put some downward pressure on spending. Since the mid-90s, this country has been governed by revolving continuing resolution and omnibus spending bill. And what that means is that America's lawmakers take one up or down vote on the funding of the entire government. That is crazy. That is the reason we're $33 trillion in debt. We want to move to single subject spending bills. So he made that commitment. He broke it. And if at this time next week Kevin McCarthy is still Speaker of the House, it will be because the Democrats bailed him out, and he can be their speaker, not mine.
So when do you make this move?
You'll be seeing it this week.
This week, okay.
That's why I came on the show this week.
Now, look, it takes only one person, obviously, you, to call for a vote to remove him, so-called motion to vacate. But you would need a majority to remove him, which means you're going to need Democrats to remove him. Do you really think that Democrats are going to vote to remove Kevin McCarthy because he made a deal with Democrats?
No. I actually think Democrats are going to bail out Kevin McCarthy. So this is an exercise to show the American people who really governs you and how that governing occurs. So I'm on a mission to change it, where we're evaluating these bills independently. Kevin McCarthy is off making a secret deal on Ukraine as he's baiting Republicans to vote for a continuing resolution that doesn't include Ukraine. So the one thing Democrats, Republicans, the White House that we all have in common is that Kevin McCarthy at one point or another has lied to all of us. But if they want to keep him, then he belongs to them.
But so you're not accomplishing anything here. I mean,
that's not true.
Well, you don't have the votes to remove him.
Well, by the way, I don't know until we have him. And by the way, I might not have him the first time, but I might have him before the 15th ballot. That's the number of ballots Kevin McCarthy needs.
So are you going to do this every day like you had suggested? Or are you going to like go through this process of voting over and over and over again?
I am relentless, and I will continue to pursue this objective. And if all the American people see is that it is a uniparty that governs them, and that it is always the Biden, McCarthy, Jeffries government that makes dispositive decisions on spending, then I am seeding the fields of future primary contests to get better Republicans in Washington who will actually tackle these deficits and debt.
Well, he's pretty powerful, I'll have to say that. I mean, he really knows how to bring a good, strong argument, and I admire that about Matt Gaetz an awful lot. Now, what's going to happen? He apparently at some point this week, Gaetz will come forward and say, I put forth a motion to vacate the chair, and there'll be a vote. McCarthy has said that he will not. This is something that came up just a little while ago this afternoon. McCarthy said he will not look to Democrats to bail him out, and he's also said he thinks he will survive this attempt to strip him of the speakership. And if that's true, and he's counted the votes, then Matt Gaetz doesn't have the votes to overturn and take him out of the speakership. McCarthy again saying this weekend he will survive.
He's going to try to oust you as Speaker of the House.
Well, that's nothing new. He's tried to do that from the moment I ran for office. Look.
Well, this time he says he's going to keep going. May not get there before the 15th ballot, but it took 15 for Kevin McCarthy. He says he's coming for you. Can you survive?
Yes, I'll survive. You know, this is personal with Matt. Matt voted against the most conservative ability to protect our border, secure our border. He's more interested in securing TV interviews than doing something. He wanted to push us into a shutdown, even threatening his own district with all the military people there who would not be paid, only because he wants to take this motion. So be it. Bring it on. Let's get over with it, and let's start governing. If he's upset because he tried to push us in a shutdown, and I made sure government didn't shut down, then let's have that fight.
You need 218 votes to vacate. Has Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, said that he will?
No. He hasn't said
what?
He hasn't said anything about what he's going to do. Look,
Democrats could cross over and follow Gaetz's lead on this.
Yeah, look, Gaetz is trying to work with Democrats. He's reached out to Swalwell, to AOC, and others. But if that's the way we're going to govern, I don't think America is going to be successful. Look, at the end of the day, think of everything we've been able to accomplish so far. Parents' Bill of Rights. We passed the most conservative bill to protect our border, make America energy independent. We've been able to cut $2 trillion in the debt ceiling, get work requirements back in. The hard part we have right now is the Senate has not passed one appropriation bill. Each body's supposed to pass 12. We've passed more than 70% of the discretionary spending already.
But
I thought it was appropriate.
Chance of surviving in the Senate and making it into law.
Well, you said that same thing when we stopped D.C. from decriminalizing everything. You said the same thing when we said we're going to stop the pandemic.
I don't think I ever talked about those things.
Well, no, you and the press would think, why pass it? Because the Senate won't take it up and won't sign it. Most of it in the press probably thought we would have shut down yesterday, too. But no, we did not.
Were you confident we wouldn't shut down?
I was confident I could get something on the floor to make sure the option that we would not.
But that you weren't sure it was going to pass.
Well, I wasn't sure it was going to pass. You want to know why? Because the Democrats tried to do everything they can not to let it pass. They did
Democrats were the ones who voted for this in a larger number than Republicans to keep the continuing resolution alive.
Did you watch the floor yesterday?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
90 Republicans voted against it.
Okay, so let's walk through what actually happened. First of all, the Democrats stood up and did dilatory actions, asked to adjourn. So was that supporting to adjourn? Then they used the magic minute. They went as far as pulling the fire alarm, not to try to get the bill to come up.
Yeah, we'll get into the fire alarm, and you may have heard Matt Gaetz talk about a secret deal with Ukraine. We'll get into that for a moment. Let's do a little bit more analysis of what happened and what is likely to happen. First of all, when it came time for the vote on the short-term spending bill to keep the government open, apparently there were some conversations between the Speaker and the Majority Leader of the Senate and the White House. One does not have a full and complete record of exactly what was said, but one gets the sense that there was a deal cut to do something with Ukraine independent. See, it wasn't in the short-term spending bill, but the president, when he spoke about, signing the new short-term spending bill into law, which he did this weekend to keep the government running, he mentioned that something about a deal has been cut, and we'll get an up or down vote separate and apart from this deal about continued Ukraine spending. Now, you say, a lot of people within the sound of my voice, and I can see both sides. I can identify with this. I haven't quite finally come down on where I am on this. I know I'm struggling with it. But a lot of people say, okay, well, let's stop sending money to Ukraine. What I want to point out to you is the money gets sent to Ukraine because both Democrats and Republicans have voted for it. But there are a great number of Democrats who don't want to send any more money to Ukraine. And during his little presser, after signing the short-term spending bill into law and keeping the government open, the President of the United States talked about a deal that had been cut with regard to Ukraine.
I did not believe we could let millions of Americans go through the pain of a government shutdown. But let's be clear. I hope my friends on the other side keep their word about support for Ukraine. They said they were going to support Ukraine in a separate vote. We cannot, under any circumstance, allow American support for Ukraine to be interrupted. I fully expect the Speaker to keep his commitment to secure the passage and support needed to help Ukraine as they defend themselves against aggression and brutality. And folks, overwhelmingly, there's an overwhelming number of Republicans and Democrats in both the House and the Senate who support Ukraine. Let's vote on it.
Well, so Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about this Ukraine deal today, and she would not even get into the conversation.
Just not going to go beyond.
What he said true?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president
So you
said.
won't say that what he said was true?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president
You're
said.
declining to say that what he said was true.
I just answered. Go ahead.
And that was that, James. No, next. I don't know. So, look, let's get into a conversation about Ukraine down the line when the vote comes, and I'll tell you why I sometimes look at it one way and sometimes look at it as another. I get the concern that some people have, but again, remember, Ukraine spending continues because a great number of Republicans are voting for it. And if you're a Republican and you're against sending money to Ukraine, I just think you need to, understand if it were just the Democrats, it wouldn't pass the House. There are a great number in the House and a great number in the Senate who want to continue the funding of Ukraine, and there's a good small vocal minority that are against the idea. But that's a conversation perhaps for another day, and we'll take it up. So where are we? Well, as it stands right now, the government is funded for 45 days, and we wait to see whether or not Gaetz has the votes. He even admitted he probably doesn't have the votes in the first round, but he's not going to stop at one round. He'll do it every day until he gets the votes. And the Speaker says he will survive without the help of Democrats. We'll see if that's the way it really plays out. It is 21 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Let's talk about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Mitchell and the Wellness Institute is bringing back its half-off spinal decompression treatment, and they'll also give you half off of their KT knee machine, which is sort of like spinal decompression for your knee. That's half off, too, for the month of October. Do you have any tingling, numbness, weakness, back pain, disc bulging, disc herniation, spinal stenosis? Have you heard any of those words used to describe your situation? Well, you need to reach out to the Wellness Institute of Nashville, 615-246-5009. If you're losing quality of life, you're not able to do the routine things of life because you have back pain or knee pain, take advantage of the Wellness Institute's $23 new patient special and half off spinal decompression. So if you're a new patient, $23, that's the cost of your first appointment. You'll get an exam, a consultation, x-rays if needed, bring in your own MRIs or x-rays. And again, that first treatment for new patients will be $23. And you'll be able to get half off spinal decompression and half off the KT knee machine. See, Dr. Mitchell is a nation's leader in spinal decompression. So if you're in pain, why don't you make a call? 615-246-5009. That's 615-246-5009. Learn more by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Well, it's over, the first day anyway, of former President Trump's New York fraud trial, and he remains as defiant as ever. And how much funding for Ukraine is enough? We'll have those stories coming up at 5:30. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 26, making almost 27 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. You know, these Democrats, they're so entertaining at times. As my old friend Chris Plant says, the only standards that any Democrats have are double standards. Let's go through some of this stuff. Kathy Hochul is the Democratic governor of New York. And as you know, New York has been besieged by a lot of people who have come across the border and have decided to go to New York because that's where they want to be. And she's now complaining I mean, they were once a sanctuary city. They were just, come on. We're a sanctuary city. Please come. Bring me your tired. And come to New York and we will hold you in the bosom of the Big Apple and we will take care of you. Because we are a sanctuary city. That's what we are. No, they're all over that now. They no longer consider themselves a sanctuary city. Here's Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who says we got to put a limit. There's too many people coming here. There has to be a limit now on the number of people that we're allowing into our country.
Well, we want them to have a limit on who can come across the border. It is too open right now.
Too open.
People coming from all over the world are finding their way through, simply saying they need asylum, and the majority of them seem to be ending up in the streets of New York, and that is a real problem for New York City. 125,000 newly arrived individuals, and we are being taxed. Now, we are always so proud of the fact that New York has the Statue of Liberty in our harbor. We are one of the most diverse places on earth because of our welcoming nature, and it's in our DNA to welcome immigrants. But there has to be some limits in place, and Congress has to put more controls at the border, and not in this budget threat, shutdown threat. Talk about eliminating positions for Border Patrol when we actually need to double or quadruple those numbers. So get back to work and do your jobs.
Oh, come on. Come on. That's just, if you have a criticism, go ahead and call out the person who's responsible for the problem. It's not Congress. It's not the Republicans. It's not the House of Representatives. It's your own president and his policies that has allowed this to happen. It's just so inconsistent. We have a problem with too many people coming into this country. Well, we didn't have a problem when Donald Trump was the president. We have a problem now that Joe Biden is the president. And, it is a Biden problem. Call it what it is, Kathy Hochul. It just drives me crazy when people try to say we have a border problem and it's Republicans' fault. It's not the Republicans' fault. The Republicans would do anything to try to shut down the border if they could. All right. In a moment, when we come back, I got a couple more things about crazy Democrats that I got to share with you. But let's call it 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 5:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Mostly sunny, 84 degrees. A complete forecast and the latest traffic are on the way. Former President Trump emerging from the Manhattan courtroom after the first day of his New York fraud trial. Among other charges, Mr. Trump's accused of inflating the value of his business holdings in order to secure loans, the former president remaining defiant.
And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics.
Trump also claims the case just a waste of everybody's time and money, and the biggest thing to him, it's keeping him off the campaign trail. U.S. officials say the U.S. has about $6 billion left in military funding for Ukraine. This, as President Vladimir Zelensky recently visited Congress and lobbied for more support. Here's ABC's Ike Ejiachi in Washington with more.
There's about $5.4 billion left for the U.S. to provide weapons and other military equipment to Ukraine from existing American stocks, according to an official. In addition, there's about $1.6 billion left from the over $25 billion Congress had previously allocated to replenish those American stocks. The official also said there's no money left to provide for Ukraine's humanitarian, budgetary, or economic needs. The official says the next announcement of U.S. military aid for Ukraine will come as early as this week.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather, they're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Busy bee, if you need heat or cold AC. And, this time of year, it could be a little bit of both. I mean, it's really warm this afternoon, and you need your air conditioning. There's no doubt about it. But, in the evenings, this time of year, it can get a little nippy, and maybe your heater's not working. Whatever's going on, if either your heater or your air conditioning's not working up to snuff, call the number I would call, 615-775-7833, and the folks from Busy Bee will buzz over to your hive and get you back up and running. You might want to become a member of the Beehive Club. This is all about preventative maintenance. I'm a member, and I think it's a great deal. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. "37 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. How you doing? Brian Wilson, you're listening to The Drive. Let's drive you home and drive the liberals crazy while we're doing it. And, when you get home, you'll have stuff to talk about with the family over dinner. That's right. Because, just go walk in and tell them something that, that you learned on this program. Here's one for you. You'll love this. Our president of the United States continues to entertain. And it goes without saying, almost every time he does an interview or makes an appearance, there is something that turns out not to be right. Either he says something that is palpably untrue, he muddles up his information, or he'll stumble and mumble and bumble his way through the appearance, and then at the end of it all, he almost always does not seem to know which way he's supposed to exit the stage. It's 2 choices, left or right, and every time he finishes, he pulls back and looks around like a lost little puppy trying to give somebody to tell him which way to go. And I got to tell you, what is remarkable about that is I have been in situations where I've been backstage with presidents before they go out on an event, I have seen what happens. And it's always something like this. You're approaching the door to enter the room, and there's an aide that appears by your side, and they say, Mr. President, of course, today we're going to walk up onto the podium, and you're going to deliver remarks. You might take questions, and then at the end of the, exit stage left, exit stage right. And by the way, they also go out there, I'm not making this up, and they put giant arrows, they use duct tape to put giant arrows on the carpet that tells you the way you're supposed to exit, the way you're supposed to leave the room. And that's done for security purposes, because if something, were to happen, they want the Secret Service and the president needs to be on the same page as to what they're going to do and which way they're going to go. So, I mean, it's there. All you got to do is look down at your feet, and there's a gigantic error on the carpet. But he can't seem to figure that out. So this weekend, there was an interview he did. It was a very friendly softball interview. And he said the following things. He's trying to talk about how I can work with people on the other side of the aisle. And he mentioned Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond was at one time a Dixiecrat. Then he became a Republican from South Carolina. And he said the following about the late Strom Thurmond died. I want you to know this in 2003. But this is what he said about the late Strom Thurmond.
When I left the Senate, I was able to convince Strom Thurmond to vote for the Voting Rights Act. Strom Thurmond.
Strom Thurmond. There's just one problem with that. Well, there's actually a couple of problems. As I mentioned, Strom Thurmond died in 2003. Biden left the Senate in 2009. That's right. So that's one, because when he says, when I left the Senate.
When I left the Senate, I was able to convince Strom Thurmond to vote for the Voting Rights Act. Strom Thurmond.
So if Strom Thurmond died in 2003 and Biden left the Senate in 2009, how can that statement be true? But wait, there's even more. There's even more. I'm not making this up. I sound like Biden when I say that. I'm not making this up, though. The Voting Rights Act, in which he talked about, was passed in 1965. It was passed, as I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, before Joe Biden ever came to Congress. So he talks about getting Strom Thurmond to vote for the Voting Rights Act after he left the Senate. The Voting Rights Act was not anything he ever voted on. Strom Thurmond died in 2003 and Biden left the Senate in 2009. How can any of this statement be true?
When I left the Senate, I was able to convince Strom Thurmond to vote for the Voting Rights Act. Strom Thurmond.
I don't know what he's talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about. Now, we talked about the big vote that took place in the House of Representatives that kept the government running for another 45 days. I neglected, by the way, to tell you that almost all the Republicans in the House and both of our senators voted against the funding measure. So, if you're among those who felt like, okay, let's shut this sucker down, then you should know that your congressional delegation was largely in support of that. And so, I just wanted to be sure that we mentioned that. But it was mentioned that the Democrats were being dilatory, which means they were trying to slow down the process as much as they possibly could. They tried to adjourn before taking the vote, and that didn't go. Then they started making 1-minute speeches, and that didn't work. And then when it came time for the vote about whether to go forward and fund the government for another 45 days, which, of course, they ultimately did, one of the most liberal members of the House, Jamal Bowman, a member of the squad, was seen pulling the fire alarm at about the time the vote took place, which was an attempt, many people believe, to slow that vote. Here's Jamal Bowman today.
Do you still stand by your statement that when the fire alarm was announced? You know, I don't know why this has gotten so much attention. I was literally just in a rush to go vote, man. That's all it was.
Are you afraid of any repercussions, either from leadership or from legally from Capitol Police?
I mean, listen, I take responsibility for what I did, you know, but like I said, I was in a rush to go vote, and, you know, the investigation will sort everything else out.
Have you talked to Jeffries about it?
Oh, yeah, of course. That's day one. Yes.
How was that conversation?
Well, I got to keep that between me and the leader, so I'm not going to share that publicly. Yeah, but we've been in touch with each other.
Yeah, but it's just a mistake. I was in a rush, and I'm trying to get there for a vote, and so in order to open a door, I pulled the fire alarm. It wasn't a button that said to open the door, push this button. It was a red fire alarm with the word, about 2 inches tall, fire. I mean, does anybody in the world not know what a fire alarm is? He says he pulled it, and it wasn't an attempt to slow things down. It was just I was in a rush, and I was trying to get out the vote, and I reached up to the fire alarm and pulled it. You know what? I'm telling you, that is a explanation if I ever heard one. I mean, that is so full of that I can't even begin to describe it. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable that he tried to claim, and there are pictures of him doing it. He can't deny that he did it. And then somebody went back to that actual fire alarm and pushed it, and it is the standard thing you see in hotels and buildings. It's a bright red box that says fire, and pull this lever down, and the fire alarm will go off. Now, it's a violation of the law to do that, and some people are saying he should be charged. He's simply saying, I just got confused. I thought I was trying to open the door. It's just not going to hold water. It's a nonsense answer, and I hope that they throw the book at him. We'll see what happens. I doubt that he'll get, this is going to die in a couple of days and nobody will follow up. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is, when it comes to Democrats, is what Governor Gavin Newsom of California did with regard to Dianne Feinstein's open seat. As you know, late last week, Dianne Feinstein died at the age of 90. It's up to the governor of California to appoint a replacement for Di-Fi. And everybody thought, well, it's going to be Kamala. It's going to be Kamala. See, they'll force Kamala to go back to the Senate, and then the Gavin Newsom will then be made the vice president, and then he'll run with Biden, and it will relieve all the concerns that everybody has about Kamala, because Gavin Newsom, people will look at him and say, well, you may not agree with him, but he's more competent than Kamala is, and he will become the vice president. Maybe even after the election, they'll force Biden out, and it'll be President Gavin Newsom. That's what everybody was. That was the buzz, right? I never really believed it, and I thought it was wrong thinking, because Di-Fi has 15 months left on her term, and there are already 3 sort of high-profile Democrats, well, at least in California, high-profile Democrats who are running for the seat, and it wouldn't have been fair to them. And on top of all that, getting Kamala Harris to go back to the Senate, how could you ever manage that? She's going to leave the vice presidency for a term that lasts only another 15 months. Doesn't add up at all, does it? To me, it just doesn't. So I never really thought much of it, but boy, did Gavin Newsom surprise me with this one. He has chosen LaFonza Butler to replace Dianne Feinstein for the next 15 months. From thepinknews.com. I've never actually read a story from thepinknews.com before. LaFonza Butler, the woman chosen by Governor Gavin Newsom to replace the late Senator Dianne Feinstein, will make history as the first black lesbian to serve openly in Congress. Butler, a Democrat strategist and advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris in her 2020 presidential campaign, will be the only black female senator to currently serve in Congress and only the 3rd in history. She will also be the first openly LGBTQ person to represent California in the chamber. I think they say that Kyrsten Sinema is bi, but she doesn't represent, of course, California. She represents Arizona. Newsom described Butler as a staunch leader who will represent the state proudly and carry the baton left by Weinstein. Well, he'll be carrying the baton left, no doubt, as left as you can go, and fighting for all Californians in Washington, D.C. There's just one problem with all of this, and you're not going to read it in the pinknews.com, but let's go over here to the New York Post. Gavin Newsom picked a Maryland resident to be a California senator. California's newest senator is a resident of the state of Maryland. Democrat Golden State Governor Gavin Newsom announced Sunday evening he was tapping Emily's List president LaFonza Butler. See, they don't mention Emily's List over there at the Pink News. Emily's List. LaFonza Butler to serve out the term of the late Dianne Feinstein, who died last week at the age of 90. However, records indicate Butler has spent recent years far from her constituents in California that she will represent for the next 15 months. A Federal Election Commission filing from the end of August for the abortion rights group listed Silver Spring, Maryland, as Butler's place of residence. Yes, this woman, LaFonza Butler, is the president of Emily's List. And if you don't know, Emily's List is a group of people that their sole purpose in life is to elect pro-choice women to Congress. Individual donation records for Butler further indicated she's not lived in California since September of 21, when she was tapped to head up the powerful Democrat supporting operation. Butler is a longtime California resident and homeowner. She moved to the D.C. area when she became president of Emily's List. Butler has already registered to vote in California. Well, she did that yesterday. Somebody FedExed her here, we better FedEx, LaFonza an application to vote in the state of California. But she last voted in the state of Maryland. She lived in Silver Spring, Maryland, just outside the Washington Beltway. Well, I mean, the bad news for her is she's going to have to get a house or an apartment or something in California. The good news is she has a place to stay when she's in D.C. It's like a 10-minute ride up the Red Line. Get on at Union Station, at Capitol Hill, and you're home about 10 minutes. So, but can you believe this? That the person who has been chosen to represent the state of California has a legal residence in Silver Spring, Maryland. 51 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. You can get a lot of different diagnoses out there, and by the Lord knows there's a pill for everything, but not all diagnoses are accurate and not all pills are good for you. When you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And I want you to know that Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, go to Eurofix. It could not only save your vehicle's life, but could actually save you from the stress that ruins your weekends. Life's too short to get stressed out and be angry. Be happy. Go to Eurofix. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit, not high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. At Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. Locations: Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now their new facility in Mount Juliet. Just call this number, 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing education and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.
The Biden administration still pushing Congress to pass more aid to Ukraine. And if you're a burglar, it's probably not a good idea for one of the items you steal to be AirPods. We'll explain at 6 o'clock. Stand by. Those stories are on the way on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right. Thank you, Jay Harper. We appreciate you being here today. Mason Fleming in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons today as Chris Weber takes the day off. Coming up in just a moment, you know what? It's the first Monday in October. Who knows what happens on the first Monday in October? Well, we'll talk about that. And I've got a bunch of stuff that I hadn't even begun to get to yet. It's all coming up in the next hour of The Drive right here on Super Talk 99.7. Good evening. It is 6 p.m., and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We topped out at 87 degrees today. We've still got some sunshine. We're at 82 now. The forecast and another traffic report are coming up. The Biden administration still pushing Congress to pass more aid to Ukraine, saying much of what's already been approved has been spent. ABC's Andy Field, he's got the latest from D.C.
The Republican-controlled House refused to add any more Ukrainian aid to fight Russia this past weekend when they extended spending. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller says there's not much left of what's already been passed.
We have already exhausted much of the existing security assistance funding.
Democrats and many Republicans pushing Speaker Kevin McCarthy to pass a separate additional aid to Ukraine package.
It was a close call for Congress, but they were able to avert a government shutdown, as you've been hearing here on Super Talk all day. They approved a very narrow and basic bill that keeps the federal government funded at least for the next 45 days. During a cabinet meeting today, President Joe Biden offered a bit of advice, urging them to work it out now and not wait till the last minute.
It ends in just 44 days. And I strongly urge my Republican colleagues in the Congress not to wait 44 days.
The agreement omitted Ukraine aid from the measure, with McCarthy shutting out a Senate package, billions to Ukraine, but well below what the White House had wanted. A man who police say is a prolific burglar here in the Middle Tennessee area and wanted on 27 outstanding warrants was finally arrested last night after the AirPods he allegedly stole led to his location. The Metro Police said that Ishimwe Tuyasenge, 19, was wanted on 13 motor vehicle burglaries and thefts over the last 9 months. In late September, police went to his house in North Nashville, where a victim's stolen AirPods were tracked. He fled from the house when police arrived, and during the execution, though, of the search warrant, 66 items were seized from his room belonging to 28 different people. Among the items stolen, 2 AR-15 pistols, checkbooks of dozens of people, credit cards, key programmers, and they also found 2 stolen vehicles in his driveway. He's being held on $232,000 bond. And we're just 3 months away from the new year, and headliners for Nashville's Big Bash have been announced. Fans will be able to ring in the new year with country singer Lainey Wilson, as well as Thomas Rhett and the legendary rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd. The annual concert at Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park is free and open to the public. So there you have the lineup for New Year's Eve. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather. It's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. 8 minutes now past the hour. Actually, it's not afternoon, it's evening. What am I talking about? Well,
it's a time of day.
There's still a little light outside.
Yeah.
We'll call it evening. Good evening, everyone. 8 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Glad you're with us here for the fourth and final hour of the drive on this second day of October. Wow, I mean, golly, I don't know, is it just me or is this year just flying by?
Absolutely. I feel like there's so much that's gone on that it just event after event has pulled the year along.
I know. It's just hard to believe. It seemed like September 1st was just yesterday. But no, we're now October 2nd, and this is the first Monday in October. And when you get to the first Monday of October in Washington, D.C., you know what it is? It's the beginning of the new term for the Supreme Court. They begin their new term, and I've got some stuff here to talk about. First thing I want you to know, and this is a pretty big decision, again, with all that's going on today, with Trump showing up in court, and the fallout over the government shutdown, which turned out not to be a shutdown, and new Biden stuff, and I mean, it's just all kinds of stuff going on out there. We probably are not going to give this enough attention, and we should, because it was a big decision that the Supreme Court made by not making a decision. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes the high court, they decide on a case, they hear arguments, and then sometimes what they do is they decline to take a case that's been decided by the lower courts, and when they decline to take the case, it essentially says the lower court ruling will stand, and that the Supreme Court did not think that by taking it up they were likely to change any of the legal underpinnings of the earlier decision by the lower court. So an appeals court decision can become the final decision and the law of the land when the Supreme Court declines to hear such a case. Such a case happened today. The Supreme Court today declined to hear a long-shot bid to disqualify former President Trump for running for office under the 14th Amendment. Now, if you were a student of the law, you knew this was a long-shot attempt by Democrats who wanted to use the 14th Amendment, which most people look at it and they say, well, it's a remnant of the Civil War, and it really doesn't apply in modern society. But, still, until the Supreme Court makes its decision known, you never know how it's going to play out. A lot of people were worried about Trump being gone after under the 14th Amendment. That will not happen. So for conservatives who were worried about that, I have good news for you. It is not going to happen. Now, this all happened when John Castro, who is running for the Republican presidential nomination, filed a number of lawsuits seeking to challenge Trump's eligibility under the amendment's provision targeting those involved in insurrections. In a brief, unsigned order issued Monday, the justices simply declined to take up one of the cases after Castro lost in lower court. The Supreme Court can deny to hear the case, but the appellate courts cannot, Castro responded on Twitter, or X as it's called now. I'm still pursuing decisions in the liberal appellate courts, and there's a full-blown trial scheduled in October in New Hampshire and a bench trial, so he's not done trying. But it seems to me when the high court speaks in such a definitive way, it's probably over. We'll see if any more interesting legal arguments are made that would cause the high court to take it up. But as it stands now, it's not going to happen. And so what is going to happen, I guess, is the real question as the Supreme Court starts its term today. There is a Second Amendment case, which is pretty interesting. The court agreed to take up U.S. versus Rahimi in a case that could determine whether federal law banning people subject to restraining orders because they were involved in some kind of domestic violence issue, whether that violates the Second Amendment of the Constitution. In some states, I think it happens in many states, if you are the subject of a restraining order because you have been accused of or charged with domestic violence, they will come and make you surrender your guns. And so the question came from a case in Texas, Zaki Rahimi, charged with illegal gun possession while subject to a domestic violence restraining order after allegedly assaulting his girlfriend. Rahimi challenged the law, after being charged under it in 2021. Now, the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, based in New Orleans, that's our court as well, declared, is that right? No, we're the sixth, I think, declared that the 1994 law was unconstitutional, and that ruling will apply to Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. The Fifth Circuit initially had upheld the law, but withdrew its opinion following the Supreme Court's landmark Second Amendment ruling last year. So the Fifth Circuit Court has said, yep, the state had the right to do that. And then when the Supreme Court came out with a big Second Amendment ruling last year, they withdrew it, said, nope, the Supreme Court has spoken, and therefore our initial assessment of this case is no longer valid. So that will end up in front of the Supreme Court for a further consideration. Last week, the Supreme Court agreed to decide the legality of Republican-backed state laws in Texas and Florida that constrain the ability of social media companies to curb content on their platforms that these businesses deem objectionable. The justices took up two cases involving challenges by technology industry groups who argued that the 2021 laws restricting the content moderation practices of large social media platforms violates the First Amendment of the Constitution and its guarantee of freedom of speech. Lower courts split on the issue, striking down key provisions of Florida law while upholding a different Texas measure. The Supreme Court will take it up. In May of this year, a 5-4 majority of the Supreme Court blocked Texas from enforcing the law. The decision handled via the court's emergency docket. No opinion was issued. Samuel Alito, in a dissent, wrote at the time that it's not at all obvious how our existing precedents, which predate the age of the internet, should apply to large social media companies. He was joined by Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch in the emergency case. That'll be one to watch. Here's another one, and it's a little hard to follow, but let me see if I can sort of clean it up for him. One case challenges the funding of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and if the court rules against the government, many analysts have looked at this case and said it could also limit the power of many independent federal agencies, such as the Federal Service. In this case, it involves the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau versus the Community Financial Services Association of America. It's an appeal of, again, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, holding that the agency's use of Federal Reserve System to fund its operations violates the separation of powers. For that case, a ruling is expected by the end of June. The court's 6-3 conservative majority has in the past limited the regulatory power of federal agencies in a series of recent rulings. I hope that is the case because, what has happened in this country is, laws no longer matter. You can pass a law and then the individual administrations, whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever, they come in and say, well, here's how we're going to interpret that law, and we're going to give the regulatory power and the decision-making power over this to Bureau X, Y, or Z, and then the bureaus come out and they come up with policies which are not law, but they have the impact of law. They may even have penalties attached to them. So what I'm hoping is happening here is that the high court will say the regulatory agencies have gotten too far away in many cases from the original intent of the law, and it's time to pare them back a little bit and take away and strip away some of their interpretive powers. How's that? I think that's what is needed. By the way, also, this is an interesting case that involved the NRA. A judge has ordered New York, the state of New York, to dole out nearly $500,000 to the NRA in legal fees after the NRA won a Supreme Court victory. A New York judge ordered the state to pay $500,000 in legal fees to the National Rifle Association. In a case decided last summer, the Supreme Court ruled that a New York public carrying license law was unconstitutional and that the ability to carry a pistol in public was a constitutional right guaranteed by the Second Amendment. See, in New York, and it was the same way in the state of Maryland, and I think in other states as well around the country, they would say, you have a right to own a gun, but you don't have a right to bear it unless you can prove to the state that you had a reasonable reason for carrying the weapon. In Maryland, where I lived, I could have gotten probably a concealed carry permit, but it had to go through a process that involved, I think it was the person in charge of the state patrol had to sign off and say, well, yes, you've made a good case that you have a real reason to carry a concealed weapon. And the Supreme Court struck that down last year. And as a result of that, these laws in places like Maryland and New York State have fallen by the wayside. And it's no longer possible for a state to say, we want to find out why you want to carry. Like I said, I could have probably prevailed in the process, but then it didn't make any sense because at the time I lived in Maryland. I would then be able to carry in the state of Maryland a concealed weapon. But then when I went into the District of Columbia, which you did a lot, when you live in the D.C. area, you're always going from Maryland to D.C. to Virginia to D.C. to Maryland. I mean, they're all so close together that, what I would have had to have done as a resident of Maryland was drive up to the state line, the border between Maryland and D.C., park my car, unload my weapon, and put it in the trunk. And that's the only way I would be legal to enter the District of Columbia. Well, that's unpractical. And so, I didn't ever have a concealed carry weapon permit, but one of the first things I did when I got to Florida after leaving D.C. and Maryland area was get a concealed carry permit. And when I moved to Tennessee a short time later, I did it again. So anyway, long story short, that no longer is the case. And because the state of New York lost the case, they had to pay $500,000 to the NRA. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, if you have the desire to add gold or silver or bullion to your portfolio, listen up. I want to tell you about Nashville Golden Coin. Because if you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion, this is the place I do business, and it's a place that I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. They also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins, and you probably don't have any idea how much those old coins you might have laying around the house could be worth. I brought in a few silver coins I had in a shoebox buried in my sock drawer. It turned out to be worth $1,652. Now, whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals for your investment purposes, or you just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Go to NashvilleGoldenCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldenCoin.com.
President Biden continuing to implore Congress to continue with aid for Ukraine. And we'll have today's closing money news. That's all coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 25 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair, on the air, on this second day of October. Okay, this is an exercise in comparing and contrasting. Okay, you ready? Donald Trump is in court today. His civil trial has begun. And so here is the thing that he is charged with. Donald Trump, who knows a thing or two about real estate, has said that he has certain properties that are worth a certain amount. And he has used those appraisals and his assessment to go out and get other loans for other business deals. And basically, it's like he lays out, here's Mar-a-Lago, here's, Trump Tower, blah, 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 blah. These are all worth whatever he says they're worth. And then he goes out and said, I'd like to use this as collateral to get a loan. Well, the problem is that the Democrats think that he has overestimated the value of these properties. Now, I don't know about you, but the last time I took a loan out, and I'm sure many people within the sound of my voice had a similar experience. When you apply for a loan with a bank, you have to tell them, what your assets are and what your liabilities are, right? That's what you got to do. And you can say, well, my asset is this and my liabilities are that. And the banks will look at it and say, yeah, okay, I agree with that assessment. So we think this is a good loan and we'll make it. That's what Donald Trump did. He laid out his assets and his liabilities, and he said, I'd like to have a loan using, this as a collateral in case I default on the loan. And the banks, listen, banks are not out to lose money. Have you ever known a bank that wanted to lose money? Nobody in a banking business wants to lose money. So what they do is they look at those properties and they say, well, we think that you've made a fair assessment, and therefore we're going to give you the loan. And there's not a bank out there that will now raise their hand and say, I was defrauded in this process. There's not any kind of insurance company that was used to insure these loans that has come and said, we've been defrauded by Donald Trump because he overestimated the value of his properties. Yet, let me give you an example. The court now believes that Mar-a-Lago is worth about, $13 million. Well, most everybody who's looked at it said that is a gross underestimation of what the property is worth. It's worth at least $300 million. Now, Trump may say, I think it's worth $1 billion. Well, here's the thing about real estate. It's worth whatever you think it is until you try to sell it. So if Trump wants to go out there and say, okay, I think Mar-a-Lago's $1 billion property, people can say, well, I disagree with that. I'll offer you $500 million. And he can say no. Or he can sell it for $500 million. Then you can say, well, he overestimated the value by $500 million. But until you sell the property, there's an open question about what a piece of property might be worth. This is the way real estate works. I might decide to sell my home. No, I'm not going to sell. I love it here in bucolic Watertown. But if I were to sell my home, I would put a price on it. Now, the market is free to say that's a ridiculous price, but I've decided I'm not going to sell for less than that. And I think that the property has that value. Again, if you defraud people and say, my property is worth this amount of money, or if you lie on a document that says, I have this much money in the bank, well, then you've got a case. But in this particular case, it was about the valuation of Trump's properties, and he has made a determination of what he thinks they're worth, and the banks have looked at it and haven't quibbled. So why is the state of New York coming after Donald Trump? I don't know. They obviously don't understand how the real estate game is played. And I think they have vastly underestimated the value of some of his properties. This is a real kind of case. It really is. And I don't know that it'll stand up in appeal if it gets to an appeal. But he's in court today. Compare and contrast that with the things that our current president is charged with doing. Selling, the services of his office if you just give money to my son. This for that, quid pro quo. Now, which of these two things looks like the more serious offense to you? But who's in court right now defending his very business livelihood? Donald Trump. Who's not in court right now? Joe Biden. There's something wrong about this picture. It's now 6:30 on Super Talk.
Good evening. It is 6:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Still a bit of sunshine. We are at 80 degrees now. The forecast and the traffic, they're on the way. The money set aside for Ukraine is running low, and nothing was pledged in the short-term measure that was adopted by Congress this weekend to keep the government running. The White House shared there are limited funds for Ukraine's urgent battlefield needs, about $6 billion. The president said more is going to be needed. He made that plea during his cabinet meeting today, saying it's just not wise to come this far and not see the project through.
I fully expect the Speaker and the majority of Republicans in Congress to keep their commitment to secure the passage of the support needed to help Ukraine as it defends itself against Russian aggression and brutality.
At the moment, the U.S. has no other funding plan to assist Ukraine for military purposes, humanitarian, or economic needs. With today's closing money news, here is Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks closed mixed to start the week in the month of October on continued worries about interest rates. The Dow fell 75 points while the S&P rose a fraction and the Nasdaq closed up 88. Rising mortgage rates are keeping more prospective home buyers out of the market, and they're discouraging homeowners who are locked in ultra-low rates from listing their homes for sale. That combination is worsening the affordability crunch, especially for first-time homebuyers, and experts say it could extend the nation's home sales slump. Gas prices are soaring in California, mainly because production is down at West Coast refineries. The AAA says the average price in the Golden State is $6.08 a gallon. That's up some 80 cents from a month ago, and it's much higher than the national average. The Anderson Economic Group says 2 weeks of the United Auto Workers strike has resulted in nearly $4 billion of losses.
That is your latest news. Traffic and weather, they're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the folks over at Everseal. First, I think I probably ought to explain what Everseal really is. It's something that's been around for ages, mostly used in industrial applications. But the folks over at Everseal figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners, well, they can actually afford. Here's how the whole thing works. They come out first of all and they do a deep cleaning of your wood and concrete surfaces to bring them back to looking as new as they possibly can look. And then they use their patented seal, which will absorb all the way through and become a permanent part of your wood and concrete. It doesn't just lay on top. It actually soaks into the wood and concrete, and it will prevent any further deterioration for the next 40 to 50 years. That's right. It's hard to believe, really, when you think about it. I mean, most people seal their decks, let's say, for example, once a year, once every other year. Maybe you get away with it, but you got to do it a lot. Well, why not just do it one time and then forget about it? Your concrete and your wood all being, permanently sealed in a way that will last for half a century? Oh my gosh. If that sounds good to you, reach out to my friend Steve Melson and the team over at Everseal. They think they can help you out with all this. Here's the number, 1-844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Learn more by going to their website, ever-seal.com. Welcome back. 638 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and this is The Drive. We're here for about another 22 minutes, give or take a minute. Well, what's a minute or two between friends? But we're going to give you some more information. I got some stuff that I haven't gotten to yet. Some of this is kind of fun. And we like to, when we can, end on a lighter note. This is not a lighter note, though, however. The White House, in its infinite wisdom and its continuing battle against anything that has to do with fossil fuels, has put yet another restriction. I mean, everything that the Biden administration does seems to be an attack against fossil fuels. And what they want is, they are cracking down on fossil fuels. They're right now driving, well, it's a little lower today, but it's been going up and up and up. The price of oil, when the price of oil goes up, the price of gasoline, diesel, and other fuels, they all start to go up as well. And there are some people who are now saying that we're approaching $90 a barrel of oil right now. It could go to 100. Some people have even said $150 a barrel. And this is largely because of the policies of the Biden administration against anything that has to do with oil or natural gas. And here's another example. This is so petty, really, honestly. It seems like if you're in the energy department, part of being up to snuff on all the latest energy issues is that you would go to an occasional conference where experts get together and talk about this or that or the other. Well, the White House has prohibited officials within the administration and said you cannot travel to fossil fuel conferences. The White House is prohibiting senior administration officials from traveling to international energy engagements that promote carbon-intensive fuels, including oil, natural gas, and coal. The guidance, which originated, this is weird, from the White House National Security Council, the NSC, was revealed in a Department of Energy memo issued internally to agency staff on September 5th. Why would this come from the NSC? And it seems like to me the NSC would be in favor of making sure that it's in our national security interest to have a lot of oil and natural gas. But no, they apparently are now saying you can't even attend a conference if it has to do with natural gas, oil, or coal. Wow. It was authored by Deputy Secretary of Energy David Turk, who outlined travel restrictions and stated officials are required to obtain approval from the NSC. I do not understand that at all before attending any global energy engagement. The guidance sets out a presumption that agencies and departments will pursue international engagements that advance clean energy projects. Oh, if you want to go and talk about, wind turbines or solar or anything else, if you want to talk about electric vehicles instead of vehicles that burn fossil fuels, and then, you can go to that. But if it has to do with fossil fuels, you cannot go. Unbelievable. In addition, the memo notes that the guidance became effective in November of 21 and applies to all international energy engagements. I don't know why. I mean, they go to the clean fuel, they go to the Green New Deal sessions everywhere around the world, flying their jets in to do it. Again, I don't understand why this would be something that would emanate from the National Security Council of all places. I don't know. It's crazy. But, not surprising. They want to run up the price of oil and gas and diesel so that you are forced, even against your will, to consider an electric vehicle that we don't have the grid to support, an electric vehicle that many people do not want, an electric vehicle that is selling so poorly right now on the markets that Ford and Toyota and maybe some others are thinking about rethinking their electric vehicle policy. The CEO of Ford has said that, well, maybe the better idea is to go with something like a hybrid because we're not ready for purely electric vehicles right now. And so they're rethinking whether or not they can sell all of these vehicles that they're being forced to make by the administration. By the way, they're losing money, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars they're losing by producing electric vehicles that nobody wants to buy. They're in the hole, big time. It's just crazy. All right. Weird stories. This comes from WKRN's website, and I think this is hilarious. Well, parts of it are hilarious. A drug suspect who attempted to flee from police on a motorized scooter. I mean, did they get out there on their scooter? Zipping right along. Well, a drug suspect who attempted to flee from police on a motorized scooter is now behind bars after he crashed in downtown Nashville. Metro police say the suspect, identified as 25-year-old Kyrie Johnson, caught on surveillance video placing a rock-like substance in the hand of another individual at about 11:30 p.m. on Sunday, October 1st. So this was last night. The arrest report states the unknown individual was then seen giving Johnson money in return. Moments later, officers observed Johnson on surveillance folding a rock-like substance inside a dollar bill. Authorities watched as Johnson then got on a motorized scooter and began to ride away from the area. He tried to make his escape on a motorized scooter. That's when officers initiated a traffic stop at Demonbreun, I'm sorry. I know better than that. Demonbreun and 3rd Avenue South, and instructed Johnson to stop. According to the arrest report, instead of listening to the officer's command, Johnson fled from the scene on the scooter southbound on Almond Street, where he then crashed. Johnson took off on foot but was caught and taken into custody in front of 311 3rd Avenue South. Metro Police say he was searched, and a straw in possession that contained an unknown substance did test positive for cocaine. He had 2 outstanding warrants for failure to appear. According to Metro Police, he was charged with felony evading arrest of a motor vehicle and several other charges, and I bet he was out in an hour. The way it works here in Nashville, nobody stays in jail. A Mount Juliet police officer was injured while arresting a suspect who stole an ambulance. Well, actually, I'm not making this up, 2 ambulances were stolen in 2 separate instances in Nashville on Saturday. Why would you steal an ambulance? I mean, it's one thing to steal a Honda Civic, which, there's a million Honda Civics on the road. It's not every day you see an ambulance. So, I mean, if you report that there's a stolen ambulance, don't you know that the police are going to look at every ambulance that goes by to see if the guy driving it has on the uniform? Authorities said 2 ambulances were stolen in 2 separate instances in Nashville on Saturday. One was stolen from the TriStar Summit Hospital in Hermitage, and they drove it into Wilson County. Mount Juliet police were told about the stolen ambulance just before noon, and they found the ambulance off Central Pike and deployed a spike system. Officers deflated some of the tires. However, the suspect continued to drive away. How do you do that on a couple of flat tires? The pursuit continued on Stewart's Ferry Pike near Hickory Hill Court. The suspect then started running away from the disabled ambulance, and they took him into custody. While the suspect was evading officers at the Mount Juliet Road overpass, the suspect purposely crashed into 2 cars, injuring. During the crash, 1 person was hurt and taken to the hospital with minor injuries. Gary Mabry, Jr., charged with theft of an ambulance. Wow. Unbelievable. The other one happened in Davidson County. I mean, it's just a full-on ambulance. One of them has flat tires. I just can't imagine why in the world of all the things you might try to steal would be an ambulance. I mean, how in the world are you going to get away with that? Here we go. Mayor O'Connell. That's right. It's hard to say because he's our new mayor. Mayor Freddie O'Connell announced was awarded nearly $2 million by the Justice Department to launch its first violence prevention program on Monday. He put out a press release saying the U.S. Department of Justice awarded Nashville's Office of Community Safety, just a hair under $2 million, to develop its Community Violence Intervention and Prevention Initiative. Oh, well, I like this idea. This means they're probably going to crack down on people who are violent offenders. No, that is not what it's all about. The program will utilize the grant to allow for a community-focused approach to root out causes of violence in certain Nashville neighborhoods. This, according to the mayor's office. Mayor O'Connell pledges to hire and train what they refer to as credible messengers, or people who live through violent situations. These Nashvillians live in communities where the most violent occurs and are expected to provide valuable insights into the search for solutions. I tell you what, let's skip the valuable insights and the credible messengers. Let's just crack down on violent offenders and put them behind bars. Take that $2 million that you're getting for one of these. Well, they're basically hiring a bunch of influencers for $2 million. And let's skip that. Better to take that same money and give it to law enforcement or to prosecutors so they have the money to actually go to trial with some of these cases that involve violent offenders. Wouldn't that be a better use of that $2 million? No, because we don't really want to put people in jail. I'm telling you, look at what happened in Dallas. You have a mayor there who cracked down on violent offenders and made sure that police were funded and that arrests were made and people were taken off the street. And a really interesting thing happened. Violent crime went down dramatically. That's the answer. That's the tried and true answer to dealing with violent crime in a community. Crack down on violent offenders. Make sure they do some time in the Gray Bar Hotel. But no, we're going to hire credible messengers to go out and sell the idea that violence is bad. Don't be violent. It's bad. Enough. Quickly, I love the story of the Tennessee fisherman who hooked with his fishing pole a homemade bomb. Well, you've been hearing it on the news all afternoon long, but I mean, really, honestly, you pull up, you got something on the line. Oh, what is it? No, I don't think it's a fish. I think I've hooked my line on, usually with me, it's moss. Moss, or you picked up a stick or something and you rolled it in. Well, they didn't have moss or a stick. They had an actual bomb, a full-fledged bomb. They tried to shoot at it, which I don't think actually works, to see if they could get it to explode, but it was so waterlogged. No official word on what they did with the bomb, but that, it wasn't a fish and it wasn't a stick. It was an actual bomb. Go figure. 51 minutes now past the hour.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing, education, and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.